my deal. So.
Oh, okay. Well, we're live.
Live.
We're waiting for Cliff. He said he's in.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, he emailed me and confirmed it. So I sent him the link. I'm gonna make sure that I don't have an email real quick.
So, folks, this is the CryptoHolics. So, crypto means we're going to talk about all the weird stuff, right? But the holics part is brought to you by Kona Brewing Company.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't know we had a commercial in our show.
Oh, so. Man, no, they're going to support us now. Anyways, that's what I'm drinking tonight.
It looks good.
Yeah, let me see what it tastes like. Tastes like summer. There he is. I'm going to bring him in.
Cool deal.
Hey, Cliff.
What's happening, guys?
Hey, how are you?
I'm doing all right, thank you.
Good deal. We already went live. We were told that it was better to go live a few minutes before.
I'll be darned. So we're live right now?
We are.
Yeah.
All right.
So we got recommended to do that a few minutes early. So
okay. Yeah, whatever you want, man. No big deal to me.
So during this, it's not really, it kind of is a show, but it's more of like where me and Brian just kind of hang out and talk and chit-chat it on up,
Right.
Share a brew.
Oh, I wish I had one. Yeah, we're just closing the museum. I'm upstairs at the museum right now. So,
okay.
My employees downstairs, I kind of tightening up the end of the day here. And, so I cut out a little bit early, went upstairs to the office, and so I'll be doing it from up here. Should I turn on the light or something? It's going to get a little darker here pretty soon. You want me to do that?
Yeah, you might go ahead. Yeah, you might want to.
Okay. All right, let me go check that out. Hold on a sec.
All right. We're doing live setup, folks.
Yeah. We're winging it like we always do.
Yeah, you don't get any more live than this.
No. I'm gonna share this on my own page since we didn't get that set up in time.
Okay. I think I will. Well, no, I'll do that next time.
Maybe better or not, actually.
Yeah.
That'll work.
Oh, there you go. That'll work.
That might be. Yeah, we'll figure something out.
I need a fancier microphone like that.
Oh, well, this is a Yeti mic. Like a friend, this guy I know, like he happened to know somebody who worked for Blue Microphones, and they have a Yeti podcasting mic. So when they found out that Bobo and I were starting a podcast, they oh my God, we watched the show. Everybody in Blue Mics walks, and so they hooked us up. How lucky are we? We're super fortunate that somebody did that for us. So
yeah. I've heard
but they're not that expensive. They're like $100, I think, or 120. I don't know how much they are, but I heard they're about that much. So
yeah, I seen them on Amazon whenever I was looking for equipment to get going on this. So So your museum is in Oregon, right?
Yeah, sure is. It's in Boring, Oregon, and we are by far the most exciting thing in Boring. And not to slam anything else in Boring, of course. I love the little community, but
sure,
Can
you tell us a little bit of what gave you the idea to start the museum? How did that all come about?
Well, yeah, after Finding Bigfoot went off the air in May of 2018, I was looking for a way to continue the Bigfoot thing, because it's blessed me in so many ways, and I met my wife on the show. I got my dog on the show, and it's, who wouldn't want to, try to scratch a living doing Bigfoot stuff, right? And I thought, well, I could go back to elementary school teaching, but during the tenure of the show, my teaching credential expired, so I would have to go back and take 6 units in master's classes anyway, and I say, well, gosh, do I really want to wake up at 5:30 in the morning? Well, I wouldn't be able to start for a year because I have to go back to school, and all these things. I'm thinking, well, gosh, maybe I can just eke a living doing this Bigfoot thing. And then Dave Becerra from Expedition Bigfoot, not the show, but the museum, he came up to the Georgia Museum. He came up to me and says, Cliff, have you ever thought about doing one of these things? You probably have a bunch of stuff around your house, and you've got a name. Why don't you try this? And I'm thinking, well, maybe, And then it turns out that he was very, very supportive. He planted the seed, but a lot of people watered it. You know what I mean? Like Lauren Coleman was very influential upon me. I've always looked up to Lauren, and I've read all his books and stuff, and he runs the Cryptozoology Museum out in Maine, so he was encouraging to me, and of course I saw Mike Rugg's museum in Felton down by Santa Cruz in California, and to say, well, you know what, it's worth a shot. It's worth a shot, and I can't say that we're financially as successful as. Well, I'm sorry about that. That might happen occasionally.
You're all right.
We're not as financially as successful as, say, Dave's museum is. But, we're scratching a living. Of course, I couldn't have chosen a worse year to open up either, to be fair, because I don't know if you've heard, but there's a plague descending upon the land. And so we opened up in October and then had to shut down again in March, April, and then May. So it's pretty crazy, man. But I don't know what summer numbers are supposed to be with an actual tourist season, but we're making rent, and at this point in the game for a new business, I was told to expect to lose money for 2 years, but we're kind of breaking even, and sometimes even plus a little. So I have nothing to complain about. One of the camera guys on Finding Bigfoot, this dude named Dana, real cool guy. He was with us for most of the seasons. He told me one time, and I totally agree with him. He told me you can only make 2 amounts of money in your life, in general, and it's enough or not enough. And I've designed my whole life to try to try to minimize my expenses. I don't need a lot of money. I just need my bills paid.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
And I was self-employed for last 12 years before I took this current position, and I would say probably the first 2 or 3 years was the hardest for me too. And I may not have ran in the red, but there wasn't much black that I ran in either. So it is a struggle, and it's a lot of work. So I feel for you on that, because you have to commit so much of your time. It's not like people think, oh, you have this business, you're going to make all this money, and you live this glamorous life. They don't see all the behind the scenes stuff that you have to put into it, and all the, it's not just I leave at 5 p.m. every day. There's things you have to do in the evening. There's weekends and things like that. So I think everyone at some point in their life should start their own business and try it, because I think it gives you a chance to appreciate, where you may be working right now. You have a better understanding of where your boss is coming from. So I think it can make you a better employee if you try it yourself for a while. I mean, it did me, I think. So I'm very appreciative now whenever I look back and say, okay, I know why this guy's doing this, because there's all these hidden costs and all this hidden time and stress this guy goes through. So yeah, I know where you're coming from. So
yeah, it's crazy. Like the nickel and diamond that goes off, and I hate politics. I hate politicians. They're all scumbags. They're not all. There's probably a couple good ones. I don't know all of them. I can't possibly say it. I certainly don't trust very many of them. But they all scream about regulations or killing businesses and all this other stuff. And I don't see it. I mean, yeah, sure. But it's all local stuff. That's what I've noticed. It's the local regulations and the state stuff. It's not the federal. Like most of the federal stuff is like designed to keep lead out of our water. So I'm fully supportive of it. It's like the local nickel and diamond that really does it to businesses. It's astonishing. I had no idea about the hidden costs, as you just mentioned, of running. Because I'm not a business. I mean, one thing has become very clear to me by opening a business. I'm not a business person. I'm a Bigfooter. And we'll see if I can keep my boat afloat, so to speak. But all these hidden costs and whatnot are just astonishing to me.
It gets to be frustrating, but I think you'll do all right. I mean, you got a good thing going there, though, right? I mean, Bigfoot's so mainstream now. I mean, it's been a hot item for years, but it's kind of hard to lose with Bigfoot. There were so many fans of it. It's not the old, back in the day where people were embarrassed of it and they kind of, they didn't want to talk about it. They didn't want to admit a lot of things. Now people are pretty open about it. I know I am. Like, if anyone asks me anything, I never hide that I look for Bigfoot. I'm just not embarrassed of it. I'll tell anybody. Even when I was self-employed, I had customers, they might see my sticker on my truck or something. Hey, what's that? Like, oh, I look for Bigfoot whenever I can. And I get the crazy eye, like,
oh yeah.
But I mean, I'm just not embarrassed of it. It's part of me. It's a big part of me now. So I love it, and I think it's very mainstream. So
I couldn't believe that no one had done it in the Pacific Northwest yet. That was, because everybody associates the Pacific Northwest with big, and we all know it's not the case. These things are nationwide. But the fact is that the early researchers, the pioneers, they all lived here. the Hinden and Green and Krantz and Burn Still's out here. That's why everybody associates the Pacific Northwest with Sasquatches. But I couldn't believe that, I was basically the first. I mean, what's his name? Joe Miller, I think his first name is, and Steenberg. They have something up in Harrison Hot Springs, where John Green used to live. But it's not a very large one, and I've not seen it. I'd like to get up there. I'm not sure Canadians are letting us in at this point, but I'd like to get up there and check it out. But I think it's like a very small room or back corner of a room or something like that. I was very surprised that there were no others in the Pacific Northwest. Because I don't really count Santa Cruz as the Pacific Northwest. That's more Central California.
Gotcha.
Well, I know, I take that back. The Titmus collection in Willow Creek, I would count that as the Pacific Northwest. But it's not the same flavor or oomph, I think, that I've got going here. I basically designed a 5th grade science project on Bigfoot. It's pretty fun and cool, I think. Where the Titmus stuff is fantastic, but it's particularly fantastic if you understand the concept, or the context of the historical stuff that you're looking at. And I think that for the general Bigfoot fan out there, who finding Bigfoot, and that's like their introduction to Bigfoot, and the Titmus stuff is meaningless, generally speaking, until you get a little bit deeper. That's not Bigfoot 101. That's like Bigfoot 2 or 301.
Yeah.
So what do you have going on in the museum? Is it like you have interactive type of thing?
Yeah. I'm trying to get more of that direction. It's actually a fairly small building. It's a repurposed motorcycle garage. Where you can imagine a motorcycle garage where you walk in and there'd be the offices right there where people greet you. That's our gift store, so it's like maybe 20 feet by 40 feet or something like that. And then the back hall where the mechanics would tinker with the bikes, that's our display hall. So it's a cement floor, real high ceilings, like 16-foot ceilings, and we've kind of partitioned things off into a couple small rooms and a small theater. And we're getting more interactive all the time. At first it was, let's get the doors open, I'm running out of money, but as the museum is maturing, we're getting a lot more cool stuff in there. Like one of the more recent displays that was put up in July, actually, is I had an old thermal imager. One of the early thermal imagers. Back in the day, it was exquisite. It was just a tremendous piece of equipment. But now it's been overshadowed by these little guys you can put in your pocket. So it's actually a 250D, a Raytheon 250D. It's the size of like a 1980s video recorder, essentially. Well, it's not really field worthy, and you have to have an external power supply and all this stuff. Wow. So what I repurposed it for the museum. So I made a display where the 250D, and it's a high resolution thing, it's probably 640 by whatever. It's looking at the person reading the display about the what thermal imaging is, and so there's a TV mounted on it, so the people, and then kids in particular, can look at themselves on thermal imaging to kind of understand what they look like. And I like it because when I look at it, my skin is bright white and my hair is actually dark, and I don't think I'll ever see my hair dark again.
Yeah, so, I feel you there. It's starting to come in. I got a little bit more salt coming in than pepper. So. Oh
yeah. But that's like one of the more recent displays we put up, and I also paired it with my analysis of the Stacy Brown Senior thermal imaging stuff, thermal imaging footage from Florida. So that it's kind of thematic too. Yeah,
that's cool. Great footage too.
It is, and Stacy's been Stacy, of course, Senior has passed away now, but Junior, Stacy Brown Jr., he's been very, very supportive and very kind. He's just, I can use pretty much what I want and all this other stuff. Just he's a good man.
Very good. Yeah. So what do you have in your museum that's very notable, like tracks wise or?
Oh gosh. Well, we've got a lot of stuff, really. I mean, the kind of the centerpiece of the museum is Murphy, which is what my nickname for the life-size Sasquatch model that we have. It was made by a gentleman named Bo Bruns out of Columbus, Ohio. He owns a company called Unit 70 Studios, and their whole gig is making professional Halloween haunt monsters and animatronics and stuff.
Oh, cool.
But he's interested in the Bigfoot subject, and I saw this model at the Ohio Bigfoot Conference last year. And I just went like, holy crap, that's the best one I've ever seen. It's just amazing. And then I found out who the artist was. I met him. We struck a deal, and basically now it lives here. And it is beautiful, man. It's 7.5 feet tall. It is life size. It's legitimately life size and looks just amazing. So good, in fact, that, obviously being in Oregon and stuff, people come in with their sighting reports quite often. We probably get between 3 and 8 sighting reports a week, you know, and these are older reports. Those aren't fresh, like weekly or something. And, you know, about once a month or so, somebody comes in with something that happened like the night before or a week before or something like that. Observations, not just sounds. And we got a sound report from last night, just today too, but observations, you know, but anyway, I digress. But anyway, when sometimes these witnesses who had seen Sasquatches had seen them from very, very close range, you know, 50, 60 feet away, broad daylight. And whenever that happens, I bring the witness to the back room. I say, hey, this is Murphy. This is our model. I want you to nitpick for me. What do you see here that is the same as what you observed, and what here is different? And they nitpick. Oh, the hair is different color, a different shade of brown, or the eyes are, you know, the skin's a little off or whatever. But they all kind of say, yeah, that's it. That's the most realistic depiction of what I saw that I've ever seen. And that's kind of gratifying that, you know, definitely get a hold of this. Yeah, because Murphy looks amazing. And you can always go on the website or the Facebook or, you know, Instagram or whatever, pick your poison, you know, whichever one of those things you want to go look at. Then there's pictures of Murphy and all those things. So.
Cool.
I wouldn't mind coming to see it just to see how it resembles what I saw a couple of years ago, you know, to be right there in front of it so I can kind of play that back in my head. So it might be something I need to check out one day. So
well, if you're ever on the, you know, West Coast, just let me know.
I need to. I really do. So
I always tell people, though, if you're going to come visit the West Coast, you might as well bring your stuff because you're going to love it.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I wouldn't come unless I was prepared to go out. You know, might as well capitalize on it if I'm going to be there. So.
Oh yeah. You're spitting distance to the PG side. You know, Skookum Meadows is right up here. Mount St. Helens, like Ape Canyon. I mean, so much was written about this area that like it's a Bigfooter's mecca. You know, you just got to come out sometime or another.
Yeah, definitely. Maybe I talk Shane into going with me. So.
Oh yeah, I'm in.
All right.
Like you say, I'm down like 4 flats.
There you go. There you go. Now, Cliff, I know a lot of people know a lot about you, and I'm not a very big historian or anything like that, but what kind of got you into Bigfoot?
I think I've always been kind of weird, you know, and like eccentric. I was the weird nerd kid in class that would, you know, go to the library and get books instead of play kickball. And I spent a lot of time in the library when I was a kid. And I remember seeing the Ivan Marks pictures and all the fake stuff or whatever, but I've always kept the interest that Bigfoots are out there. You know, I was In Search Of, and I'll be 50 here in a few months. You know, so I grew up with In Search Of and all those 1970s schlockumentaries, as I call them, and I just loved it all. But I've always kept an interest in the strange and the unusual because I'm an eccentric person. But when I was in college, I ran across a book. A couple books actually that were basically collections of scholarly journals written by anthropologists on Sasquatches. You know, I would read the works of Krantz. I would read, you know, some of the John Green stuff. He's not an academic, but nonetheless, these other people were academics. And when I started reading about the evidence for Sasquatches, well, it really spun my head. I mean, I knew the subject was out there, but I didn't think scientists paid attention. I just thought it was, you know, like it's hard to get a scientist to look at the crystal skull, for example, right? I mean, I think they did the work, but then I started realizing, like, oh my gosh, look at how the evidence aligns. Look, like, and I started thinking, like, why is it that every native tribe, indigenous tribe in North America that lives in suitable habitat has stories of giant hair-covered people-like things outside of wood? I mean, that doesn't make sense because the native people in Maine weren't talking to the native people in British Columbia. Their trade routes just didn't go that far. So it just made more sense that there was a biological reality behind it. And then, of course, then you get into the biomechanics of the foot and how Krantz did the cripple foot recreations and the shortening of the metatarsals and the elongation of the heel and what that means to the gait and how that actually that's like a necessary biomechanical redesign of the foot to carry a mass of that size. And it's just like after a while, my head started spinning and like, holy crap, they're real. Like, I don't have to see one to know they're real. I'm not like Renee where I don't believe it unless I see it. And it's ridiculous. I mean, there's lots of things that you know are real because the evidence says so. You don't have to see an atom to believe they're real, you know? I was already backpacking and stuff, you know, and I was already camping all the time during the summers and stuff. So I decided to start camping and backpacking in places where people had observed Sasquatches, you know, and that was back in 1994. When I started doing actual physical, field research, and you know, here we are, 26 years later, and I'm just drowning in the subject every single day.
Yeah. Well, that's pretty cool. So have you had a chance to put eyes on one personally?
I saw one in a thermal imager one
Okay.
time, or at least I think it was a Bigfoot. I mean, the context sure says it was a Bigfoot. But again, to be fair, it is through a thermal imager. I didn't put my eyes on it, but I would love to. But it was in actually filming our North Carolina episode of Finding Bigfoot. And when Moneymaker goes, "There's something on the hill," when he says that, he's talking about the thing I saw. And we weren't filming at the time. We were 2 miles off trail at 2:00 in the morning. And we're on break because back then, the cast and the production company were having troubles together, because they were encouraging us to be less than truthful. But they foolishly hired real Bigfooters who were not willing to sacrifice our research and name for the sake of some dumb TV show that's going away in a few years, no matter how successful it is. Yeah. So the producers were huddling, saying, "What are we going to do with these guys? They're jerks. They're not cooperating." And we're over on this side going, "What are we going to do? We're not going to, that sort of stuff." And by the way, we worked it all out. Production company and like the cast members, with the help of Animal Planet, who came out. We had the ratings on our side, so we won. And the production company, it was a steep learning curve for them to figure out what Bigfooters really need, because most TV shows are just they're not truthful. Frankly, whether it's Bigfoot stuff or ghost stuff or whatever, they just go out and get the shots they need and fake a few things and go home. Yeah, we didn't do that, right? But anyway, I digress again. I tend to. Well, anyway, at that time we were on break, and because 2:00 in the morning, that everything was down, the batteries weren't rolling and stuff like that. And Moneymaker's scanning the area with the therm, and he sees this thing up there. It's either a person or a Bigfoot, clear as day, right? One of the two. A human-shaped thing on the therm up on the hill about 70 yards away. And Matt was trying to figure out, who is that? Because like a lot of people, you're looking for Bigfoot, but you see what turns out to be Bigfoot later, but you didn't know it at the time. You thought it was a person. That happens very commonly. And it happened to Matt that night. And Matt still goes back and forth whether it was a Bigfoot or not, because he thought it was just, some drunk guy spying on us. Well, that drunk guy, when Matt took off after it, totally outpaced Matt. And it was navigating the wooded hillside without a light at, 2 in the morning. And we never saw it again. I observed it for about 8 seconds or so, 6 or 8 seconds maybe, on the thermal imager. It was not walking like a person walks. I'll tell you that. It didn't walk like Patty either from the PG film. Mm-hmm. It had a very peculiar gait. I've never seen it. Although I have seen photographs of Sasquatches since then that resemble like some aspects of the gait that I observed. And then, after Matt chased it away and, Bobo and Renee scolded him on camera for the episode, which was all real, by the way. We didn't get footage of it. I wish we did. And then we got vocalizations off the same hillside about 45 minutes later. Something came back and was going at us from the same hillside, like right over there in the dark. Wow. I just don't think it was a person. The context doesn't make sense to me that it was a person. So I'm inclined to think that I saw a Sasquatch that night.
That makes sense.
Yeah, I can't say it for sure. I try to be a little cautious in what I say about things.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, when I saw mine, I was, as a friend of ours, Tim Autry, he's commenting here a couple of times. We didn't get to see it approach us. All we could do is hear it walking towards us. We knew it was something bipedal coming towards us, and then it was hiding behind a stump and was just kind of raising up and peeking over. And we just saw its head go up and down, and then finally it kind of moved to the side and was looking at us and just kind of backed off this hill and walked away. So I didn't get that chance to see the body and to see it walk or anything like that. But I got very good visual of what I think were the hands around the stump and, of course, the head and the face. So, I always told myself, and I told these guys, because we've been chasing this thing for a while now, and I was always the guy like, man, as soon as I see this thing, I'm going to run right at it. Whatever happens, happens. But I have to get to it. But I'll be the first to admit, when I saw it, I froze. Like, I didn't move. I was just in such awe of what I was seeing. Like, because it would not comprehend in my brain what I was seeing. Because to me, what I saw didn't exist, right? I've seen these footprints. I've seen these tracks. I've heard these things yell. All these things that I know it exists. But once I put eyes on it, my brain just could not compute it. It just froze up and locked. And so I was fixated on it. So I was a little frustrated in myself in that, because I hope I get the opportunity again, and I can, prove myself at that point and get to this thing so I can get a real close, and hopefully nothing bad happens to me. But I just got to get a close up of this thing. So I was probably, what was it, Shane? We measured that out about 60, 70 yards, somewhere right around
Yeah,
there.
and the terrain was pretty much like this.
Yeah. So,
and we actually went back out there and recreated the whole, kind of like what you guys would do on the show or whatnot.
Yeah.
And not 2 or 3 adult men could fill that void of what they were seeing. I wasn't there, but I do trust Brian and Tim.
Yeah.
So that kind of solidified it a little bit more for them too.
Anybody who tells you what they would do if they saw one hasn't had the chance yet.
Yeah.
Because we've all been there. I was an arrogant little punk myself at one time, saying I would do this and that until you're right there. I had a camera in my hand, and one was 60, 70 feet away from me during daylight, and then it just did not happen, did not unfold the way I anticipated.
Yeah.
That
was me.
I find I don't want to cast judgment on others necessarily, but I find myself foolish when I try to predict the future. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah. I mean, I even when us going out and casting tracks from the tracks we have found, and they've kept me up at night, just trying to fathom the entity that's walking and leaving that, and then punching it into the soil the way it's, it has to be heavy. So it just blows my mind constantly.
Yeah, I know when we found the first, I guess it was the second track, the second time, and it was the 20-inch track, and I think you may have seen a picture of it, Cliff. I think someone sent it to you.
Someone sent me a video of them crossing a creek, and there was a track on one of the video on the other side of the creek. That's what I remember.
That was a video I took January 18th of 2019. Waldy sent that to you, I believe.
Yeah, I don't remember that whole thing. It was a really bad time. That was right when we were shutting the business down. I thought I was losing. In fact, I don't know if I spoke. I don't even know who I spoke to. Maybe I spoke to you guys.
Yeah,
but I will say,
I spoke to you once.
Well, yeah, whoever I spoke to the second time, I looking back, I was less than respectful to that person. I feel terrible about it. And I was going to call that person back, but I didn't have the number. And I wasn't like F you or anything like that. But I was just that whole thing came as my business looked like it was failing. And I put a tremendous amount of money into the business, and was thinking, God, what? I don't have time for this. Because I still think the track is fake, honestly. I don't want to dance around it doesn't look real to me. And there's several. I can be specific about the reasons in a few moments.
Okay,
sure. But whatever it's worth, I don't know who I spoke to or anything like that.
Yeah, it wasn't me.
Well, I apologize. I'm glad I'm speaking to you now, because I'd like to apologize to you about, because I was short that day. I was distracted and whatever else. So I apologize about that. Because, the thing about, this is what I've been starting to say lately, and maybe this is even inappropriate, but I don't like being put on a pedestal, because it means they can see up your skirt. Not everything's pretty up there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And too many people, I believe, put me or any number of people on pedestals, and we don't belong there. I don't see myself as any different from you guys or anybody else for that matter. I'm not a Bigfoot expert. I'm a learner, just like everybody. Meldrum's the only foot expert I know, and that's because he's earned it with, his academic studies and whatever, but whatever it's worth. So I'm glad I have a chance to speak to you personally and apologize, because you deserve it. And, it was a shitty day for me, pardon me, but that's just what it was. You know what I mean?
Yeah. We have those.
We all do.
Yeah. Telling me I'm going to have to shut my business down. I said, and I just got this thing going. I just threw away a tremendous amount of money. It wasn't my thought. And it's like, oh, this is the last thing I need right now. So anyway, I apologize, but I still think it's fake. So whatever it's worth. So
and full disclosure, whenever Shane and you talked, and Shane told me, like, we are so dedicated to this, like we take this so serious. Like when Shane called me and told me, like, man, Cliff thinks our trackways are fake, our casts are fake. Like it cut pretty deep, because it's just like someone calling your kid ugly, right? And as a parent, and I'm being honest, like I'm being a parent, like I was like ready to fight. You know what I mean? I'm like, where's this Cliff guy at? So my reaction to it was go to Cliff, to your website, and I start looking at your cast. And I may have made a YouTube video where I totally just trashed your cast. And I did that probably within 3 days of your conversation with Shane. and I'm comparing yours compared.
What
to
track?
ours.
What track did
just the ones that you have on your website. Just
like the Freeman stuff and the Patterson stuff and all that.
No, not the Freeman. Just ones that you have personally.
Because I've cast very, very few, and none of which are really the only ones I've tracked were the really did a good job casting and stuff were the London tracks, and they're fake.
Yeah. The London tracks was one thing that I mentioned.
Oh yeah, they're fake. Of course, you can trash those all you want, man.
Yeah, but
they fooled me. They fooled me for a while, but
there are several that you have on there, and I don't know who cast them or anything. I don't think you personally cast them, but they're ones that you have on your website, and to me, that's validating those. And I was looking at those, and I was like, man, how can he look at these, and these look real to him? You know what I mean? And I'm like, I'm looking at ours, and ours are first off anatomically correct in my opinion. It's a big foot, it's 5 toes, right? And I'm looking at the ones that you have on yours, and I'm thinking, to me, that looks like a couple of elk stepped there and made what looks like pointed toes, so I'm being very critical. And then with the footprint on the mattress.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So I'm looking at that. I'm thinking to myself, unless I saw Bigfoot step there, could anyone put that on a mattress, by hand or whatever? And so I'm coming back at you at that same line. You're looking at ours. Yeah, I don't think those are real. I'm looking at yours, and I'm saying I don't think yours are real.
Oh, that's fair. That's fair.
Yeah, and it's not a jab at you or anything like that. It's just I'm trying to.
It even could be. I don't mind that either. Yeah,
I'm just trying to prove a point that everybody has an opinion, but I'm just really curious into like what makes you think ours aren't real.
The things that I see aren't in the right size, place, or proportion.
Okay.
And that's a big thing about it, for example, the Holics, right? The big toe. Here, let me pull up a picture of the cast, okay, on my phone here, so I can at least look at it as I speak about it.
Okay.
Sure. Yeah, the big toe. Let me find it here.
There you go, Cliff.
Here we go. Wait, pull it back a little bit. That's not the cast I've seen. This is the cast I've seen. Maybe unless you're
it's the same trackway.
It's a right foot. Oh, the same trackway. See, I've only seen that's another problem. I've only seen one of the prints.
There was 5 of them.
If I only see one print, if I only saw one of the London tracks, I'd still think they're real. The thing is, but you got to see more than one. And I've only seen a picture. I've only seen this picture.
Yeah,
and that's it.
See, this is from the 20-inch.
Yeah. What I found that the big toe is unusually divergent. I don't have another example of that in the data set. And I have about 250 or so footprint casts on record, right? So what I do is I look at things in context. And the big toe is unusually divergent. That doesn't mean it's impossible, but it is unusual in that way. And especially when the other lateral toes, so the ones off to the side, the smaller toes, they're not splayed nearly as much, if at all, really. The pinky is a little bit, but that's about it. The pinky toe, the 5th digit. And also those side digits, those other ones are unusually small in proportion to not only the hallux, but also the rest of the foot. And there are no other examples of this in the data set so far. Okay. So that's a big concern for me. Also of a concern is the extremely well-developed ball with all those creases and stuff in it. Those have not been observed in any other casts. See, so what I have seen them in fake footprints, like Aaron Swepston and those guys who faked the LB tracks. They introduce such little small details in there like that. And so generally, when you see details that look like a bottom of a foot, that's an attempt by the hoaxer to make it look realistic, like the bottom of a foot. Okay. But the thing is, what's really not well understood, I think, in the Bigfoot community, even amongst Bigfooters, is that the footprint is not the shape of the foot. It never is. It's the shape of the damage done to the ground by the foot. So in order to convince an animal tracker or me or somebody in Meldrum or somebody like that, you need to look at the interaction between the foot and the substrate, because in every case, that's what you're going to find. You're going to find that the toes are in different amounts of flexation or a different amount of horizontal splay. You're going to find that the pressures are in different places in each of the foot, depending on a wide variety of variables. So when I see things like these creases in the middle of the foot, But they're not even in the right place, by the way. If that's a mid-tarsal pressure ridge, that's way too far forward for a mid-tarsal pressure ridge. But when I see these creases that look like the folds of skin, that's a huge red flag. That this is most likely a sculpt of a foot pressed into the ground instead of a sculpt of the interaction, a dynamic signature of the interaction of the foot with the substrate as the thing walks by.
Well, hey, look at this. I hope you might be able to see this. I don't know. From January 19th, the video where you saw a couple of prints and you saw looked like a big gouge in the bank.
Perhaps I don't remember, but something like that. Yeah.
We casted all that.
Uh-huh.
And as you can see, well, you can't see it here really good. We have got to meet up with this dude.
They should make copies of them, first of all. Like every original cast should have a latex mold made of it.
Look, you can see the toe going through the mud.
Well, I would love to see that because I have a very large collection of fake tracks and real tracks as well. And there might, like there's I couldn't see very well, but it looks like there's some striations in the front of those toes. And that would also be problematic because that's another sign of hoaxing. But I would love to see the tracks in person, and I would also like to see them in context because that would mean a lot. Because again, one track alone, if it's a good hoax, it's going to fool anybody, right? But 3 or 4 or 5 tracks of the same foot from the same trackway, it'd be very difficult to fool somebody like Meldrum. And I'm easier to fool, of course. I'm a fool to begin with, but it'd be very difficult to fool people who knew exactly what they were looking at.
Well, we have 13 of them. And I mean, I'm
from the same trackway?
From the same entities, we believe.
Oh, see, I'd like to see them from the same trackway. That's the way that
we've got 4 out of 5.
Yeah, see, that would be very interesting to see. The same foot or left and right, or
left and right?
Left and right.
Okay, yeah. So you have at least 2 of each foot.
Yes,
correct. Okay, well that's a good start. Yeah, because if you ever can, if you have the opportunity again, cast the same foot as many as you can. The left foot, or just choose one, and the other foot would be interesting if you have enough plaster. But to really convince somebody, you're going to have to cast the same foot over and over again.
Oh, we make sure we have plenty of plaster. I mean, if we have to go get more, if we have a track, we're going to cast it. You know, we're not a one and done guy. But I wanted to bring up a picture though, real quick. So.
Oh, the Stiligama track, from it's up in Washington. What's the guy's name? I forget his name. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm just kind of curious because your big toe there.
Yeah, it's quite divergent.
Yeah. And so, I'm looking at that and I see that same similarity. Of course, there's not as much detail in this one as ours, and a lot of variables come into play on that with soil condition and things like that.
Oh my God, yep. Oklahoma red clay sand is beautiful to step in. You can leave something there.
Yeah.
I mean, even the raccoons, they step there and it's like, oh my God, it looks like it's breathing, even though it's just their track. It's the anatomy is see the blood pumping through that thing.
Yeah. But if I remember right, the Stiligama track actually had a sighting associated with it, I believe. And then the investigator went out to follow up on it, and he found those. And again, there's a lot of tracks. A lot of stuff hasn't been published. Like Dr. Meldrum gave me the opportunity to go through his laboratory one day while he was doing paperwork, and he said, "Yeah, take pictures of whatever you want." Blah blah blah. And I spent like 3 hours, like a little kid in a candy store, giggling to myself as I go through the drawers there. And there's a lot of tracks where the toes look very unconvincing, but they're easily explainable when you understand how the foot interacts with the substrate. DeHinden called them sausage toes, but DeHinden really didn't understand as much as we do now about Sasquatch feet and other non-human primate feet, essentially. But the ones I'm looking at here on your track, they have the very strong suggestion of pads with the toe stem, and all of them, frankly, look too small. Like they're compared to the rest of the foot and the hallux in particular, they're really unusually small. Like there are no other examples in the data set like that, especially when you combine it with the exceptionally wide heel. There are no other examples in the data set of a heel of that breadth of a track that's 16 inches long. They're all more narrow than that. And so you got to understand, from my perspective, seeing a footprint cast, you have the hallux, which is unusually splayed, but not unheard of, combined with a bunch of toes that look way too small, with a ball that is too short and with the creases in the wrong spot. combined with the heel that's very, very large, all those things add up to me just saying, like, it doesn't sit right with me. It looks like a fake, you know? And
Okay.
again,
No,
cool
I
does,
mean,
you know?
I totally get that, and I totally get, everyone has their
Mhm.
opinion, but for me, like, you're comparing that to what you have. So, do you not think it's possible that different parts of the country, these things could vary somewhat? I know a lot of people talk about, their bulk, the size, even height, color, everything kind of comes into play, just like, people are different in different parts of the world. So, is it not, beyond the possibility that, say, your Washington and Oregon Bigfoot, given its area, its climate, everything that has to do with what it calls home, could maybe have that creature slightly different than, say, something that's in Oklahoma or East Texas and Louisiana?
Well, we would definitely expect a genetic variation. Absolutely. These things are long lived. They have a low birth rate. That's the recipe for a wide genetic diversity, essentially. But I do have a tremendous number of footprint casts from outside the Pacific Northwest, Kentucky, Florida, Georgia. Let's go down the list. There's a ton of them. And the what's the word I'm looking for? The relation, like, a human in Florida or Oklahoma is going to have the same proportionality to their feet as someone in the Pacific Northwest does.
Sure.
And Sasquatches in general, they have a different, their bones in their feet are of different proportions. The metatarsals have been shortened, for example. The heel length has been lengthened. And so that mid-tarsal pressure ridge that I was referring to earlier should be further back on the foot than there. And you shouldn't see that really delineated like ball structure right there. It's just too far forward. And that you should not see a differentiation depending on where the thing lives. That should be rather consistent within the species in general, because those are necessary biomechanical redesigns of the foot to carry a mass of their size.
Okay.
Big mass is a big mass. So that's the problem I have with that stuff.
Well, you definitely would have to see these in person.
I would like to.
And look at all of them, and then really look at the little toes too, because they're really not in the same position in each cast.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, that would be much more convincing than one cast out of context, right?
I studied 3D animation, arts, and design. I've learned about inverse kinematics, anything you can do in a 3D realm to make real world coordinates and it be as real as possible. And the anatomy of these things, from an artist standpoint, first of all, just it blew me away. Yeah, you do have to see these. That bank track I just showed you with the toes going through, I've got the print before that too, so you can see that the big toe is flat pretty much with the padding because it was on flat surface.
Mm-hmm.
But when it's going through that mud, that big toe is like this. It's bent. Mind you, January 18th, it was wintry mixed weather. That soil is damn near concrete.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, you take a pole or a deer can step in anything and punch a hole in it. We're talking about something 20 inches that could crash through this soil, this mud. No examples of any human activity around there. Nothing.
But didn't some guys pulling up a truck and ask what you guys are doing at the site? That's what I was told.
Yeah, I mean, there's a road that goes through there, but
Yeah.
we're not. What we're saying is, whenever we get there and we're surveying the entire ground. So the first thing we want to look at when we got there was we want to say, is it possible for someone to come in there and make these tracks? So we're looking for other traffic first and foremost, because let's say, for instance, we had 3 of these, or even the first set we found was 2 16-inch tracks. They were found by a girl that was hunting morel mushrooms. She posted them on a site, said, what do you guys think these are? I happened to see them. I contacted her. I had her take me out there. She pointed me in the right direction. I seen them. So the first thing I want to look at is when I get there is, okay, am I going to each track and I'm finding a couple guys' boots, you know what I mean, next to it where they're making this track? That's the first thing I want to look for.
And they would have had to have a big old fat dude punching through that big.
Yeah, I mean, at that time I weighed right at 250. And I'm wearing, cowboy boots, and you can see my heel, because of the sharp edge of the boot. I'm leaving an impression. But
that's another misconception, though. I'd like to point that out. Like everybody points to Bob Gimlin saying, "Oh, my horse didn't impress as deeply as Patty's feet," and all this stuff. But that's not the way that the footprint works, though. That's another huge misconception in the Bigfoot community. If you don't mind breaking it, I'm sorry about that.
No, go for it.
Stamping something into the ground, well, if you do it exactly the same way, it does matter the weight or the force behind it, because we're really talking about force against the ground, right? More so than weight, I guess, because that's the same thing basically. But the way the foot interacts with the ground really throws all that out the window, because as the foot interacts, various points of the foot take the weight. You see, a footprint what's the best way to? It's almost like it's you're looking at an impression made over time, right? It's over time, and as the weight shifts across the foot and weight is brought down in various places, and the thing pushes off using its muscles, so it's more than just the weight. It's actually the force the muscles pushing down. It's not a direct correlation to the weight of the animal at all. And then when you add into that things like soil structure or the soil moisture content at the time, speed the animal is traveling, that affects the force against the ground, all these sort of things. It's not a direct correlation between the weight of the animal and the depth of the print, even though it's commonly thought as such. And all the early investigators talked about it like it was. So we've all been conditioned to think that way, but that's just not the case.
Okay. So would you say that with the way the motion is, and the way the weight is distributed, depending on, obviously the animal would be moving, right? I mean, there is some motion there. So the foot wouldn't be flat, right? I mean,
it depends on the substrate. For example, the Grays Harbor prints are very, very flat, and they've been critiqued as being fake because of that. But frankly, in that particular case, it was about 1.5 inches of mud on top of a hard packed gravel road underneath. So there was no give after a certain place, but on the side of a stream bank, that could be the case. It could not be the case. What you generally find is that from about the halfway mark forward on the foot, on a Sasquatch print we're talking about, from the halfway mark forward on the foot, that is generally deeper than the rest of the footprint, because the heel strike doesn't always happen like that.
Oh, yeah. So you would say something like this then. Okay,
I can't see the entire print, so it's hard to say if that's halfway or not.
Okay, so probably right here is your halfway. Okay,
yeah, that's a little far forward still, but it's possible.
Yeah. What are your heel?
What is the let me see the toes again, because that also plays a part, whether the track has been supinated or pronated. Can you pull it back a little bit? I can't see the whole thing at the same time.
Now all we have on this one is there's like a little bump where the big toe is, and then of course over you start getting the smaller ones, and then the foot, and then on down to the heel. But that directly, I mean, that's exactly what you just described.
Yeah,
I mean, you're talking about a flatter area at the back of the foot at the halfway point. Obviously this thing is pushed off on the ball of his foot there, right? So I just want to bring that up, because when you started talking about that, I'm looking over at my desk and I'm looking at that, and I'm like, well, hell, he's describing exactly what I'm looking at,
right? But
when you look at a photograph and all you see is that, it doesn't give it the detail, whenever you can look at it in 3D like that.
Yeah.
Hey, Brian, that's just like this too. Like, here's the hill.
You gotta pull it back from the camera, because it's a contextual thing. It's not a close-up.
I'm sorry. All right. Okay. Here. So the hill is right here, and then from the halfway foot forward, all this is moving, so it can move.
Exactly.
And that hill hit the ground and popped up, because it just left a little impression right here. It popped up as all this pushed through.
Maybe, the bank. Yeah. I have to see a person to really get into it. But,
you have to see this in person.
Yeah. And it's just like this one here. This is just like the other one I showed you. I showed you the this one is the right. The first one I showed you was the left. This is my rookie mistake. This was my first cast I ever poured, and it was just too clumpy. But this one is stepping off of a bridge onto the ground. So his heel is in there, because he had took that first step off of a higher elevation and came down, and then it flattened out. So to me, I saw motion in that. Yeah. I didn't see, and I don't see a guy out in the middle of nowhere paying attention to that much detail to an area. Now, had someone known that, hey, this is where Southern Bigfoot Alliance goes looking for tracks. I'm going to get out there and mess with them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
This is a
'Cause I
place
know,
that
I know when they're coming out there, and
exactly. This is
it's
a
not.
place that I mean this was these two 16-inch was the one that the girl found looking for the mushrooms. And I met the girl. I talked to the girl. She was a young girl, early 20s, very very country. I mean, she had a pistol on her. I mean, she was, you know, the jeans tucked inside the boots. I think she was even dipping some chewing tobacco. You know what I mean? Like she and I even went through everything I could find on this girl because I wanted to first see if I find this girl in any Bigfoot group, I'm done with her. I'm not even going to drive out to where she's at because I was just looking at photos. And I was like, I'm not going to waste my time driving for hours to meet her if I can find her in any kind of Bigfoot group on Facebook. So my first deal is to search her and investigate her as a person. And that's what I did. And I found her nowhere. Like she was in some hunting groups. She was in the morel mushroom groups, things like that. She looked like just a typical, you know, early 20s girl. And so then I set it up. Okay, I want to meet you. I want to talk to you. I meet her there. She takes me to him and she starts telling me about how she hunts in that area for deer, but she only hunts at one location because this back location has a creepy vibe to it.
Gives her the
And
EBGBs.
yeah, and to me, I want the creepy vibe. I'm like, take me to the creepy vibe. I want to see
Yeah.
what's causing this creepy vibe.
Yes,
And then she drove me back there and showed me these. She says, here they are. And she didn't stay. She was like, I'm just not comfortable back here. And she left.
Mm-hmm.
And then we take these, and there, of course, there's a great big picture to this. We even have, and I'm sure you haven't seen this photo, and Shane could probably send this to you. We have what we think is real eye shine from a trail camera. And Shane, being the graphic artist that he is, he had me stand in what we think was that place, and he put some little dots on my eyes to kind of give it a.
I put them on your ears.
Oh
to
yeah,
even
on my
get-
ears. That's
Right.
right. And we want to do it like a comparison. And from this thing's eyes to where my ears, I mean, it would have to be probably 1.5 times the width of
Yeah.
my head. And I got a big head, Cliff. I mean, this is a melon. You know what I mean? Like, I don't have a peanut head. This is a big head. If you see me in person, you think, my God, that's a big head. So for this thing to have that much width to it, and with everything else we found, I mean, I'm 100% without a doubt these things are legit, you know, in my heart. So I don't mean to come off abrasive or anything like that, or super defensive or anything like that. But it's just my passion about this, you know. And I'm like,
Again,
man, we
I'd
work
like
our
to-
butt off, you know. So
I'd like to see them in context because again, all I have is this footprint photograph. Right?
Yeah,
that's what I got. And one, like as I said, the London tracks would have convinced me if I only had one print. But because whoever faked them knew what they were doing, you know, just like the LB tracks would have done the same thing. But you know, those guys are professional skeptics practically, so like they know what they're doing when they're making fake tracks, and they model them after real tracks. If I saw yours in context, there are things about them that could convince me that they're real. But seeing this one, the things are kind of in the wrong place, and it looks like a foot and not a footprint, and that's a big red flag. That's something that hoaxers do.
Sure.
I kind of went down my list of, you know, red flags. And the only thing that would convince me is if I saw several tracks from the same track line, and I could point and I could say, "Oh, look, there is differentiation in the horizontal toe splay of the toes." You know.
Yeah.
But if I went down and I found two tracks of the same foot, and I found the same number of supposed folds in the flesh, you know, that would be a huge red flag. I shouldn't see a duplicate of the same stuff in two tracks in a row. They should be different because that's what real tracks do. Fake tracks don't, though. They duplicate themselves again and again, the same foot. So that would be the challenge, I guess. If I could see these in person, and you told me these, I would trust you that these came from the same track line, same time, same day, not the same animal, same time, same day.
Mhm.
Then we could get onto something, you know. Then there are things there that would convince me.
Yeah,
All right,
and
so
we found these. We found these over several periods. You know, the 16-inch, and then several months later, we found the first 20-inch track, and the first 20-inch track was pure dumb luck. I mean, we went back, we were looking, we all walked over it, we went by it, and then as the sun went down, I kind of glanced back and I saw what looked like deer tracks, but they looked really big. And so I went back and looked, and I was like, it's not deer tracks, that's toes. And I stared at this 20-inch track for probably 10 minutes because I'm like, this isn't real. This can't be real. And this track isn't just out in the wide open. You know what I mean? It's not like you step out of your vehicle and it's right there by your car. This is out. And it's covered in leaves. It's crossing this creek.
No, even a deer stepped in it to get a drink out of the creek. You can see
And I have it.
Of
course, I'd probably have to get way back for you to even see any part of it, but it's just huge. And so for me, when I looked at it, I was like, I couldn't believe it, first and foremost. And then you can see where the deer stepped off in the middle of it.
The deer stepped in.
And then we went back. How long ago was it then, Shane, we found the third time when we found tracks?
That was January 2019.
2019. So this has been going on now for.
There was 11 tracks that day.
Yeah, it was a track wave 11 that day.
We have
so
maps of that one too.
So for 3 years now, we've been finding tracks, and they've all been 16 to 20 inch. Now we did find something recently where the originals were actually 15 and a half, and the newest ones were right at 16. So either that's a different animal, or we have measured growth in a 3-year period.
Well, I would say this, that if these are indeed real tracks, okay, if they are, then I would suggest that perhaps you're looking at the same individual anyway.
Yeah, I think there's two. I think that's actually there's actually a third one that's recently popped up where the right foot is toed in real hard like this, and so as it walks, it's pitch and toed in, and we found it was in a water area where the water had went down, and we had walked up on this berm, and I just kind of saw him out in the mud, and I thought, man, that looks weird. And so we walked out there and we saw him, and it was just, and we photoed it. I took measurements, everything like that. I didn't pour them that day because there was no detail to it other than it was an oblong, foot shape. But that right toe just going in, and each step was a little bit farther and a little bit farther, like it came down this berm and started gaining speed as it was running across this muddy area. And then we went back a few months later and found the exact same deformed right foot. Probably maybe 150 feet away from where I found that. Mm-hmm. And it's the same situation. It was hanging around the edge of that water. There's a lot of beavers there. And so I was thinking,
it's Beaver Town right there, big time.
Yeah. So my thought is maybe this thing is walking up and down this berm, and when it sees a beaver in that shallow water, it's just running across. I don't know. I don't know what their diet consists of. I don't know if anyone really knows, but I just know that a beaver would be a big snack, and they're not a very fast animal if you can catch one on the ground. So I don't know.
I think if you find a track of a hypothetical injured animal or deformed foot or something like that, those are probably the most important ones to cast, because the deformities will only happen where the anatomy would allow it to happen. I mean, think about Dr. Grover Krantz's reconstruction of the Bosberg footprints, and that only happened because the animal had a deformity in its feet, and that's what started giving us the insight into what the inferred morphology of the foot would be. Now, of course, Meldrum's refined it a little bit based on a larger data set. I think, if I remember right, Krantz had 60-something casts in his collection in the early 90s. And, now there's about 300 footprint casts on record at this point. So there's a larger data set. And Jeff frankly, it's just knows more about foot morphology than Dr. Krantz did, because Dr. Krantz was an osteologist, a bone guy in general. But Dr. Meldrum cut his teeth on the way non-human hominins, non-human primates and human ancestors walk, and what led to bipedalism. So he's specifically trained in this essentially. But it's the deformed individuals, the ones with some sort of, damage to the foot or something like that, that really give us more insight into the structure of the foot. So I would suggest that if you do see tracks of this individual again, cast them. Nothing to lose faster, and there's a lot to gain.
That's the plan. We're out there and around the area quite often.
Speaking of Dr. Meldrum, if you speak to him, he has a hair analysis. And if you mention it to him and he'll send it, I would love to hear it. I've been waiting about 2.5 years on it. I kind of given up on him, but the original 16 inches that I showed you, I extracted 2 reddish brown hairs from the center of one of those footprints, and I sent one to Meldrum, and I kept the other.
Now, the thing about that is that no primate has hair on the bottom of their feet.
It was like,
kind of makes you wonder, right?
Yeah, I'll show you where it was. It's not like right on the bottom of the foot.
Mm-hmm.
It would be more about right here on the edge of it. There was possible. 2 hairs. There was 2 hairs there. The one I have right now is about 2.5 inches long. I kept that one. Mm-hmm. The other one broke when we extracted it out of the mud, and it was about 1.5 inches, and that's the one I sent to Meldrum.
Yeah. Primate hair is easy to identify under a microscope, and that's free, by the way, too. So even if you get a decent quality microscope from a high school or college, you can take a look at it because there's only a few characteristics that would differentiate it from any other hair. And hair, by the way, is one of the most common contaminants in North American woods by far. In fact, I think it was Jim Halfpenny, if I remember correctly. He's a professional man tracker, worked for Border Patrol and all that sort of stuff. He does tracking seminars, and he has his students sit on the ground in front of him, and he's lecturing and stuff out in the woods. And then at the end of it all, he says, all right, no one can stand up. You have to keep your butt cheeks touching the ground until each and every one of you picks up, I think, 3 or 5 hairs. And it isn't more than a minute or two until everybody does so. That's how common hair is in North American forests in general. So to find hair underneath tracks is not rare at all. In fact, it should be expected, I think. The question is, what does it come from? Now, when you put a hair under a microscope, the telltale features that we're looking for, and this goes for everybody who might be out there listening, what we're looking for under the microscope are a small number of things, and they're very easy. Number one, it should, and this is according to Dr. Henner Fehrenbach, by the way. Okay, Henner's work was the pioneer on this stuff, and he worked at the Oregon Beaverton Primate Observatory and all this other stuff. So he's very well qualified for this. Number one, it should shine red, no matter what color it looks like. Sasquatches their hair shines red when backlit, like under a microscope or when the sun's behind them or something like that. In every case. Number two, it should not have been cut, but it also should not be tapered. And that's a big misunderstanding. Sasquatch hair, in fact, ape hair doesn't taper. The sides are parallel and to the end when it becomes blunt. It doesn't taper down to nothing. That's a sign of another kind of mammal, like a bear or dog or something like that. And then, of course, everybody knows about the medulla. The medulla is like the center shaft of the hair. It's like the pencil lead inside of a pencil. And Sasquatches have a fragmentary or completely missing medulla. And by the way, so do red-haired people, like red-headed folks, humans. They have the same characteristics. So it's not unheard of by any means. But that's another characteristic of Sasquatch hair. And then there's another one. I thought there were 4. I might be missing one right now. So anyway, those are the things that you're looking for under a microscope if you do get an opportunity to put your eyes on something like that.
Well, I might just need to buy me a microscope and check it myself because I've been hanging on to this thing now, and I have it in a paper envelope and locked away, and I'm just not ready to let go of it.
Mm-hmm. No, and you should never give your entire sample to anybody. Yeah, anybody. Just always keep something for yourself.
And when I sent it to Meldrum, really what I was more curious about was, is this even a real hair? First and foremost, I know he can't tell me it's a Bigfoot hair, obviously, but he could tell me, no, that's a red fox or that's a mink or something like some other known animal that would be in that creek here in Oklahoma. So that's really all I was looking for. And I haven't got that from him. So
yeah, Jeff's wildly busy. I mean, he's got 8 kids or something. He's got a ton of kids from 2 different marriages. He teaches classes. He's very thinly spread, shall we say. If you want more immediate results, maybe talk to Cindy Dosen up in BC. You can reach her through the Olympic Project. Okay. Yeah, and she's really taken it upon herself to learn as much as she possibly can about hair morphology. Of course, she's a layperson, but she's done her homework. So I do respect her opinion. It wouldn't be as definitive, perhaps, as an academic or something like that. But there you go.
All right. Yeah, that'd be somebody to check into. Like I said, I'm just real cautious about wanting to give that thing up. So
yeah, if it's your last one, you might as well put it under the microscope with your own eyes.
Yeah.
Take a look at it because again, no medulla, blunt ends, parallel ends, and never been cut, obviously, and something else that I'm forgetting right now.
Okay. Well, I'll definitely check that out. So
weekend project for Brian coming up.
Yeah, give me something to do. Like I don't have enough going on in life, right? So
Yeah.
taking away from my field time, I got to do some research time here at the house. So, but that's all part of it. So,
Yes, sir.
You and Bobo have a podcast now. I guess you guys are starting.
Yeah. Well, we've been doing it for about a year ago. Last May is when we started it.
Oh, okay.
We're doing okay on it. We still can't figure out how to monetize the thing, so we're just doing it for fun. Basically, it seems to me now.
Yeah.
But it is fun. I get to talk to the Bobes once a week or so, and just today we recorded another episode. So yeah, we've been doing that for a while, and it's called Bigfoot and Beyond with Cliff and Bobo. We put our names in it, so it'll be easy to find because you can remember Cliff and that Bobo guy. You can look that up in podcasts. You'd find us right away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I sent Bobo some audio from 2017 in southeastern Oklahoma.
November.
November. It was just really odd audio, and I sent it to probably, I don't know, maybe a dozen people, and I ended up running into him on Facebook, and I just sent it to him. I thought, he's probably never going to look at this. He's never going to listen to it. And he was pretty excited about it. And I invited him down. I said, if you guys are ever in Southeast Oklahoma, I will take you there. And I mean, it's our main research area. It's not where we got these casts, but it's our main area that we go to. Yeah. And to him, he said it was 100% authentic. And to me, I know it was, because I was there, but it's an interesting audio. I should have played that for you. You probably would have.
You know what? It never plays good on platforms like this, period. I always tell people, put your head down. I give them the timestamp of when these two things stop, wailing, and the coyotes and the whole world go crazy, it seems like.
Yeah.
Like bloody murder, right?
Yeah. We have them on our SBA YouTube page.
So yeah.
You can listen to them there. It's actually pretty good audio there. So. Well, I was hoping we'd have some questions. Look like people made comments, but I don't think.
How can you tell if people are there?
We have a little deal to the side, and people have been commenting since we've been talking.
Oh,
you should be able to see it, I think.
Yeah, yeah. You know what? Mine was set to private chat. I think that's the thing. Oh yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Hi, everybody.
Yeah. So you can see Pat's there. He says only important footcasts are the ones where dermal ridges can be picked up. Dermal ridges here in Oklahoma are tough.
Well, I disagree with that premise anyway. Dermal ridges only show you so much, and you also don't know if the person touched it. I've been finding a tremendous number of samples in the data set where the investigators touched the print, and some of those have derms on them. So we don't know if they're the person prints or, well, even though they're in places that doesn't appear that the person touched the cast, so they're probably Sasquatch derms. But since the person touched the cast elsewhere, we have to throw the whole thing out, basically. Yeah. But important. Now, and again, I don't mean to be disrespectful to Pat at all. I think that the every track is extremely important because right now we don't know very much about Bigfoots, and I'm way past the point of trying to tell anybody else they're real or not. Who cares if you don't think real? It just means you haven't been exposed to the evidence. You haven't done your homework. That's fine. I don't care. I don't argue with people who think the world's flat either. I don't have time. But what we do need to do at this point is learn as much as we can about not if they're real, but how they exist. And the only way to do that effectively is by tracking them. In fact, that's how most field biologists, wildlife biologists, track animals. They don't follow a grizzly bear around. They look for the tracks of that individual to try to figure out where its habits are, or they do DNA on the scat or that sort of thing. So, and really, by having this is something that Dr. Meldrum and I talk about when we're together. By looking at the breadth of the data set, the 300 cast set, we have, we're starting now to see the same individual pop up again and again. And so now we're learning about where this Bigfoot has been going, and then we can start gleaning some information about maybe why it's going there. We can start learning about its habits, and maybe if we're good enough, we can eventually intercept it at a place where we can predict it's going to be. That's how Paul Freeman got his film, for example. I have Paul Freeman's map. I have the actual artifact. It's on display here in the museum with all of Paul Freeman's data.
That would be interesting to see.
Yeah,
fascinating. It's fascinating. But Paul Freeman marked every footprint find, sighting report, blah, 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 that he heard of on the map, as did Wes Summerlin and Bill Lowry and Dr. Krantz. And all these people contributed to this one map. And Paul Freeman had, by looking at the data of the footprint cast and other things, he actually said, well, you know what? Something's happened at Deduck Springs every August and September. So he actually took it upon himself, and I verified this with his son, Michael, by the way. He took it upon himself to start driving to Deduck Springs outside of Walla Walla every single day at like 6 o'clock in the morning. And it was a few weeks after that, he actually got the footage. He used the data to predict where an animal that had been there a number of times before would go again. So the only tracks that are worthwhile are not necessarily the dermatoglyphics, the ones. If you can track the same individual over time, to me, that is far more valuable than one track with derms. So I mean, that's just my take on it. So that's
and we kind of agree with you on that, and that's where we're at with the Squatch Creek area. So we're starting to learn the time frame when we're starting to find these tracks, and we're starting to see if there's some type of pattern to it. Is it like a mating season or something like that, or why these two are coming? Because obviously there's two. There's a 16 and a 20 roughly. So why are they only?
I don't think. I mean, I'm sorry to interrupt. I apologize.
Right. Go for it.
But I realized I never said my main point last time. I have footprint tracks on the wall here in the museum of the same individual. What I believe strongly, and Jeff agrees with me, or I agree with him. We agree with each other that these are the same individuals. And one track is 14 inches long, and another track is 18 and a half or 19 inches long.
Okay.
Yeah, because again, it's not the shape of the foot. It's the shape of the damage done to the ground by the foot. Yeah. So if you have a 16-inch track, it can leave a 20-inch print easily. In fact, I would argue that Sasquatches don't get big enough to leave 20-inch tracks. And I would go back to Dr. Grover Krantz again on that. He devotes a section of his book, not a small section, but a section of his book, to talking about how there is a physical limitation on how big Sasquatches can get. Just like there is in elephants, because when an animal is bigger, you have to pack more muscle onto it to accommodate the extra mass. But there does come to a point where there's a limit where the muscle you pack on adds more weight than it's worth. And I don't remember the number, but I think he speculates it's probably around the 10-foot range, or maybe a little less than that. I think people actually vastly overestimate the size of Sasquatches, and I could be wrong.
I totally agree with you on that too.
But I think that a 20-inch print is way outside anything else that we consider real at this point.
Yeah,
and only would be a result of slipping and sliding if it's real at all. So whatever that's worth.
And a 26-inch shoe is beyond the realm to me too, but Shaquille O'Neal wears it, right? So
no, he does not. No, his feet are 14 and a half inches long.
I'm talking about shoe size.
Oh, you said inches long though. So to be fair,
size 26 shoe.
Oh yeah, well, but his feet are 14 and a half inches long, and only 60-something% the width of Patty, who also has a 15 or 14 and a half inch foot length. So the Sasquatch print is actually 1/3 wider than Shaquille O'Neal's foot.
Which, I mean, I would say it would have to be, right?
Oh yeah, for sure, to accommodate that level of weight. Plus, you add to the flatness and the flexibility, and
and the terrain that they have to carry in. So, and I lost my point.
As far as 20 inches goes, I don't know. I don't think any of us know, because we don't even have a specimen at all.
No, but I would invite you to consider the possibility that if your tracks are real, the 20-inch print is the 16-inch individual.
Yeah, I'll disagree with you on that, because because is the toe.
In January they were together. In January 2019, they were together.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That right there kind of was like,
okay. A 20-inch track itself raises some red flags. Just so you know, like that's a big concern, because that is many inches longer than anything else we consider real in the data set.
Well, I mean, like I said, you just have to see these.
I do.
Yeah, I would love to bring them to you. I don't know where you're at next, but if you're anywhere in the South, I want to drive to you and bring every one of these to you. So
I'll be in Texas, I guess. Craig Woolheater just reached out to me. Actually, he was texting me a few minutes ago.
Oh yeah.
Apparently, they had somebody back out of his Texas conference, and I know Texas is keeping or at least Craig is treating this very seriously and all that sort of stuff. So the whole plague thing. So I feel safe enough I could travel out there. So I'll be at the Texas conference, which is a spitting distance really from Oklahoma. So
yeah, that's is that in October?
Jefferson?
It's in Jefferson, Texas,
Mhm.
and what is it? The weekend about the 16th or something like that. I think.
I live in Texas, so.
Okay. Well, yeah. Again, I'd love to see the tracks. If you can bring them down, I'll buy you a beer.
I'll be there. I'll be there. I will definitely be there. I'll bring the hair. I'll bring all the tracks. I'll bring everything. I'll gather everyone else's tracks that we have and bring them with us. So, yeah, I'm definitely.
If you're going to come out, what I'll do is I've got like a black grid background, and I'll take photographs of the prints and stuff like that, and add them to the data set and stuff. And I'd like to see them. I mean, whether they're real or not, they're important to look at. I'll just leave it to you guys. Like, show me a couple tracks in a row. If you can only bring a handful of them, make sure they're from the same track line of the same foot. Oh yeah, that's what's going to be convincing.
We'll bring them all.
That'd be wonderful.
Yeah, we'll bring them all. So I'll load them in the back of the Suburban, and we'll head that way. So
that'd be great. I'd love to meet you in person. And frankly, I think I owe Shane here a beer anyway, because I was less than respectful when I spoke to him, and that's beneath me. I try not to be like that. But you caught me on a shitty day. It is what it is, right?
All right, you're good.
We all have been there. No big deal. Yeah. So let's see. I was just reading a few of the comments here. It looks like somebody bought a cast from you.
Probably. We saw them to the shop.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep. Yeah, and I'm happy to answer whatever, about whatever. I don't care. Got nothing to hide.
Michael Waldy says it's great to have an expert on. Waldy, I don't think he likes being called an expert.
It's a thing. And I'm a learner like you guys.
Waldy probably said that on purpose, because Waldy might be being an ass right now.
Yeah, Waldy is that way. So yeah,
it's all right.
Yeah, he might just be poking the bear. So
well, I've been accused of being assholier than thou, so I'll just take it as that. So
hey, we have to. It's all right. You know what I mean? You're always going to have people that aren't going to like you. You know what I mean? I don't care how nice you are to people. I mean,
holy crap, go on TV and it seems like hardly anybody likes you except for people who don't know you.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think the problem with TV is people have this image of who you are, right? And then if they hear or see one thing different, then you're just a bad guy, right? Because you didn't live up to what they believed you were. So
yeah, expectations are tough. I tell people all the time, the only way you can be disappointed is by having expectations, and try not to have any.
Hey, who's that? CryptoHolics? Is he going to be on your show tomorrow?
Oh yeah. We're interviewing him for the Bigfoot and Beyond podcast tomorrow at noon my time. So
that guy's a walking encyclopedia of animal sounds.
Yeah, he's like that dude in Police Academy. Does all the sounds and voice. Yeah, he's ridiculous. He's awesome. He's a good guy, real good guy.
Yeah, just cool
dude. Yeah, Bobo's been in touch with him since we filmed with him. I don't think I have, but Bobo really likes the guy and speaks highly of him. So.
Tim says, what are your thoughts on the moon phase, and does it affect sightings and movement?
Well, I know it affects deer movement and their feeding habits and stuff. So I would have to assume it probably does. But to my knowledge, and not even me, we haven't accumulated the data. I was talking to Dr. Anna Nakaris about this, actually, when I saw her last year. And she was very challenging to me, which is wonderful. I love being challenged. She says, well, Cliff, where's the data? You say this, but where's the data? And I had to say, well, we just don't have it, because I know I haven't been collecting it, and I don't think anybody else has. Or if they have been, it's been hoarded, or it's in a form that we can't use. Like the information's there in the BFRO, but like it hasn't been crunched in a way that's as necessary. And it's not really, I do take notes when I go out and whatever, and I could probably go back and accumulate that stuff, but I don't think I have enough the data to provide much insight. The BFRO database would be useful if you could correlate the date of the sighting, if you even have that information. A lot of times you don't, to moon phase. I know that deer feed, or at least I've been told that deer feed during full moons and stuff. I would imagine that affects the Sasquatches, since that's one of their primary, trips in life, is just trying to get close to deer and kill them and eat them. So I imagine all that stuff would probably affect them to some degree. I've been told, not so sure I've found this to be true or untrue, that under new moon conditions in the complete utter darkness, they're more prone to approach you closely. But if that's the case, then why are all the films of these things at night? They're always hiding, I don't think that's the case again. So I don't know. I don't know if I have a good answer for that one.
I have a question for you. I like to ask a lot of people, what do you think Bigfoot is?
Oh, well, I think they're paranthropus is what I think they are. because everybody goes to Gigantopithecus, right? But the fact is, we don't know much about giganos, really. We have five jawbones and a few hundred teeth. So we know a little bit about what it ate. We don't know much about anything else. We don't have any postcranial fossils. We have nothing really. So, and although I was talking to Ken Walker, the world-renowned taxidermist, he's won like best in the world 6 times or something like that. He did a Bigfoot replica, and there's a film coming out. All of you should see it, by the way. It's called Big Fur. It's fantastic. It's a documentary about how he made this Sasquatch replica. But he was telling me just today, actually, we had him on the podcast, is why I'm speaking to him, that there's something, because to be a good taxidermist, you have to understand the morphology and anatomy of animals. And he was saying about how the gigano jaw is different than the gorilla jaw and human jaw. It's somewhere in between, and how that relates to the position of the head. And he had a lot of really interesting insights. But since we don't know practically anything about Gigantopithecus, we do know a fair amount about Paranthropus. And for those people who may not know what Paranthropus is, we've probably all heard of the very famous Lucy skeleton of the human ancestor. It's called Australopithecus afarensis. Well, Australopithecines had 2 main branches, like they kind of split at one point. And one of the branches was a thinner sort of, these things are basically chimpanzees walking on 2 legs. That's basically more or less what they were. But there was a thinner, sort of more gracile form, is what they call it. That's what Lucy was, the Australopithecus afarensis. But there was also a more robust, thick, burly, stocky version of the same kinds of animals called the robust Australopithecines. And that's what Paranthropus is. These things are so different from the rest of them that sometimes they're referred to by a different genus name, Paranthropus, instead of Australopithecus. Well, it turns out that Paranthropus, the Paranthropocines, I think they're called, are basically Bigfoot, except they're about 4 or 5 feet tall. Basically Bigfoot, almost in every way. They had the big zygomatic arches, the sagittal crests, both of which are used to attach chewing muscles to. And you can see both those things in the Patterson-Gimlin film, plain as day. They're basically, and they're pear-shaped because of their pelvis, and I could go on and on. But so instead of going with something that we don't know, which is except for right place, right time, right size, I'm kind of going towards Paranthropus at this point, because they were basically Bigfoots to begin with, just smaller. But if those things ever radiated out of Africa, which is where all the fossils that we know of are from, and we don't know that they did. So that's the big unknown in my speculation, my hypothesis about this. If those things did radiate out of Africa, they would have headed northwards, and they probably would have definitely crossed into the Middle East and going north, because that was like the escape route of Africa at the time. They would have ended up in the Himalayas, and if they continued going north, into Siberia, basically. In other words, colder regions. When an animal lives in a colder region over many, many years, many, many generations, they tend to get larger. It's called Bergman's rule in biology. You can look it up. And it's basically has to do with the heat retention of an animal and how much mass it has and how much heat it generates. That's why polar bears are so damn big. In fact, black bears in Alaska are bigger than black bears in Mexico due to Bergman's rule. So if these things got out and got into the colder regions, and where they would have to be in order to go over the Bering Land Strait into America, they would have to live in colder regions for many, 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 many generations. And over, the last million years or so, they could have just gotten bigger. And frankly, it's not that big of a jump between 5 feet and 7.5 feet. So right now, I am inclined to think that Sasquatches are just a species of Paranthropus.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Human ancestor, by the way. And also now we know that because of the proteomics study that was done, that published earlier this year, you can look it up. They studied the proteins inside the Gigantopithecus teeth, and that directly put them in line with Shivapithecus down to orangutans. Now, Shivapithecus, it didn't have a brow ridge. Orangutans don't have a brow ridge. Sasquatches are universally reported to have brow ridges to some degree or another. And of course, I've asked Meldrum about that. He says, well, Cliff, it could have developed. It could have evolved independently. And he's absolutely right. It could have. But I think that's a slight indication that perhaps we're barking up the wrong tree there.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, but I don't know. I mean, nobody knows.
It's good to hear everybody.
Yeah. None of us
kind of
know.
dissenting view, because everybody goes Gigantopithecus because it was postulated back in the 60s by John Green, and then Grover picked it up and ran with it, and Jeff wrote about it in his book, and it's a solid theory. It is very possible they could be real. I think that there's an alternate theory that works just as well, and until we learn more about Gigantopithecines, why not say Paranthropus? Because there's not that much change that needs to take place.
Okay. Well, here's the age-old question right here. This gets more people fired up than anything. Should a specimen be harvested?
It's not a matter of should. It's gonna, basically. I'm not a gun guy. I have firearms, but I'm not a gun guy. I'm not a hunter or anything like that. I have a couple, firearms, but that doesn't make me qualified to go out and shoot one of these things by any stretch of the imagination.
Sure.
But it's gonna happen, whether we like it or not. I personally, I'm not going to pull the trigger. I'm not going to necessarily help anybody go kill one of these things. If somebody does kill one or run one down in a truck or something like that, I'm a good person to call, because I will definitely put it in the right hands and do the right things with it. But I didn't write the rules, but that's the rules of science. That at this point, that in order to prove something real, you have to kill it. As ironic as that is. Now, I've spoken to Dr. Todd Disotell, formerly of New York University. He's in Massachusetts at some academic institution now. Last year, I was talking to him about this very problem. He thinks that he's a geneticist, by the way. I don't know if you know that about him. He does DNA testing and things like that. He thinks that with repeated positive DNA hits of something that's very unusual, but clearly primate, blah, 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 like Bigfoot stuff. He thinks that with repeated DNA hits combined with repeated footprint finds, combined with repeated video evidence that's of good quality, that should be enough to prove the species is real without taking a type specimen. I countered that and said, Todd, well, you know DNA, but I don't know DNA. I mean, you know how all this works. It would convince you and your nerdy DNA friends. It wouldn't convince the public. Mm-hmm. And he says, yeah, but if you got enough people out there, and well, eventually what would happen is that they would have to go out and shoot one anyway, is what it comes down to. It's sad, but true. And that's why I always caution people, careful what you ask for. If you are working hard to prove the species is real, you are, accidentally or not, advocating to kill one no matter what. I'm not advocating to prove the species is real. I'm satisfied that they're real. I know they're real. I don't bother trying to convince anybody. Yeah. My goal is to be an educator and to try to soften the blow of discovery, because it'll be probably the worst thing that ever happened to them.
Yeah. No, I mean, I see that. I have friends that, they hunt. They hunt Bigfoot. Their goal is to harvest one. And I don't judge those people, I mean, that's your right. That's your belief. And if you think that's going to get the job done, then get the job done. And I've had those types of people invite me out, on outings and things like that. But I'm kind of like what you said. I'm not your trigger man. And I'm a gun nut. I have a lot of guns. I hunt. I've hunted my whole life, but I'm not hunting this thing. So even if I have the opportunity, I mean, I don't need to pull the trigger and kill one to prove to anybody. I mean, I already know it's real. I'm not trying to get rich off of it. I'm not trying to drag a body to the county fair and sell admission tickets to see the thing, So, but there are people, and I get their point. You know what I mean? I totally.
It's science. It's just the way it is.
Yeah, and I don't judge those folks for that. You know what I mean? And
hey, if they have the balls enough to get close enough to one of these things, and after their brain figures out what they're seeing, and they can actually pull the trigger, then I mean. Good for you.
Well, yeah, and I always reflect back upon what Dr. Krantz said. He was asked by somebody who was writing an article about him, because Krantz was a well-known, kill one to prove it kind of guy, which is fine. It's not my gig, but that's what he wanted to do. And he's a scientist. He if anybody should say that, it's scientists, because they know the rules. They're the ones to be put in that position and all that jazz. But this journalist asked him, what would be the first thing you would do if you shot one? And Krantz thought for a moment and replied, reload. And I think that's very wise, because I was talking to a guy just this past week who, a researcher up in Canada, who has spoken to a fair sampling of people who have claimed to have shot, and even one or two guys that have claimed to have killed one. They said that the guys that he knows that this has happened to, and it was a defensive situation, said these guys hunt grizzly bears. And they all kind of said that these things are a lot harder to kill than grizzly bears are. And add that to the fact that you may see one, but that doesn't mean there's only one around.
True.
Yeah, that there would be nothing more horrifying than being in a situation where you shot and wounded one of these things and you don't know where it is.
Yeah, I mean, that's just like any of us. If we're in the woods and say we're all three together and some guy shot you, then he better watch out for me because I'm going to retaliate, right? I mean, I think that's common for anybody and anything. So I don't know. Yeah, I wouldn't want to be in that situation. So
no,
I'll pass. I'll do a hard pass on that. So
yeah. Count me out that one.
Yeah, and I know we don't want to keep you all night. And whenever you feel like you need to go, you just let us know. Because one thing about Shane and I is we will talk all night.
Well, how about if I give you till, what is it, 6:25? I don't know how long y'all want to go, but how about if I give you till about 6:45 or 6:50?
Okay, that'd be great.
Then I go home and I have some dinner with my wife.
Yeah. Okay. So
you better do that. You better do that.
She's very understanding. That's the only reason we've made it this far.
Good. Yeah. Tim Autry asked, do you think there's a lot of them, or do you think they're near extinct?
I think they're somewhere in between. I see no reason to think that they're going extinct at all. But I will say that there aren't very many of them. I think Bigfooters in particular vastly overestimate how many of these things there are. Again, I'll go back to Krantz, who I think it's fair to say understands far more about ecology or understood far more about ecology than I do. He kind of guesstimated that there's probably about 100 bears for every one Bigfoot. And I think that's probably pretty close. And, I used to think there were a lot more myself. I want to point out that I come from a place of ignorance when I say this. In my early days, I would probably mistakenly identify sounds for Bigfoot. No, we all do. That's what we all do. It's just kind of the growing pains of doing what we do, right? But it was the footprint evidence that convinced me there were far fewer of these things than I ever thought. Because once I started looking at the footprint cast evidence, it started kind of calibrating my eyes to see the individuals in the data set again and again. I realized that, the Bluff Creek evidence, for example, from 58 when Jerry Crew got his cast up to, we'll just say, when Roger and Bob got the film. There's 1 to 10, 12. There's about 20 footprint casts in all that time, and it represents 3 individuals. Freeman evidence, and I'm going to say the Blue Mountain evidence because that's more accurate. Because too many things are attributed to Freeman. He got a lot of casts, but not as all the Blue Mountain stuff is not Freeman. It's Wes Summerlin, it's Paul Freeman, it's Bill Lowry, it's all those guys. So the Blue Mountain evidence is about 60 casts, maybe 50, 60 casts, and as far as I can tell, it represents about 3 or 4 individuals. You know what I mean? And so when I see how far apart some of these footprint casts were obtained, and start going, wow, they have a really big territory, or at least the males do. I think that's my model right now. But the footprints represent a very small number of Sasquatches, and I found that very interesting. So I've kind of scaled back my estimate for how many of these things there are. I think at this point, 2,000 or so individuals, maybe 3 at the most, in the Pacific Northwest sounds reasonable. Sounds like a lot, but it's not. At 2,000 individuals, if you take away all the paved land, then just left the good habitat, that's over, I think it was 275 square miles for each one of them. They don't live as individuals like that. They live in small family groups, as far as I can tell. Continent-wide, maybe 5 or 10,000 of these things. Again, sounds like a lot. But man, it sure isn't. It really isn't. 10,000 of these things, or 5,000, is just so few. So they'd be one of the rarest large animals on the continent.
And that's about exactly the number that I said to other friends and stuff that do this. Is I think it's 5,000, maybe even less, and they look at me like I'm crazy. They're like, no, there's 100,000 of them and things like. And I don't know if they're going extinct, but I do think they are diminishing. I mean, just like a lot of things on this planet, right?
Yeah. Well, I don't think there's a lot we can do to really harm them except for genetically isolate them. And the biggest culprit for that would be like Florida or somewhere like that, where they're paving everything and kind of isolating genetic populations. But in a lot of the other parts of the country, like the Northeast, for example, a lot of the land's going fallow, going back to its original forested state. So in some parts of the country, we are damaging their habitat and diminishing the number of acres that they could live in. In other parts, it's expanding. So I think at the end of the day, it probably all kind of balances out. And you know what? Bigfoots are so damn good at what they do, and they're so smart and so adaptable that they can probably just work around. I mean, there's Bigfoots like right outside of town. I've had reports of stuff happening in like brand new like suburban divisions, like right on the edge of green belts.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that blows my mind.
Yeah, the ones that live close, they just go into what I call ninja mode more often. You know, the ones that are way out, they can relax a little bit, but the ones that live close by and that are stealing things out of freezers on your porch or taking scoops of dog food or whatever, you know, that they just slink around like ninjas, and we just don't even know they're there.
Yeah, you guys did an episode here in Oklahoma City at a Stinchcombe Wildlife Refuge years ago, and you know, I found a really strange tree structure back in there one time. Another buddy that's in our group had. We also found a couple odd tracks that was crossing a dirt road in there. So, and that place is, I mean, it's right in the middle of the city, right? Yeah. I mean, you've been there, and there's houses within, you know, a half a mile of that. So, but there's just enough woods, there's just enough waterways for that thing to maneuver around and not be seen if it wanted to. So, I agree with you.
What I remember about that place, we filmed in kayaks that day, little behind the scenes finding Bigfoot stuff. We filmed in kayaks that day, and I'll always remember this because they're rather steep ledges, you know, that go down to the water. And Moneymaker was there, and he was in the water, kind of getting used to the kayak. He's not a water guy so much, but he loves being in the water. But the boat thing sometimes throws him for a loop. So he's kind of getting used to the kayak, and swimming towards them is a water moccasin. You know, or is our cottonmouths the same thing? I don't know. Because we don't have those here.
Yeah.
Okay. It was some brown, poisonous, nasty, venomous snake, right? So it was super aggressive, swimming right at him, and it was a small one, right?
Oh, yeah.
I don't know. Oh, yeah. I know that out here we have rattlesnakes. The small ones don't know how to control their venom sacs very well. They're a little bit more dangerous sometimes, you know. And this one's swimming towards Moneymaker's kayak, and he's taking the paddle. He doesn't realize that this is a venomous snake, and it's gnarly. And he's like, "Oh, God damn it, what's this thing doing?" It's like splashing it away, and they keep coming back. What is it? It's like, oh my God, Matt, don't do that now. What is this thing doing? And he's like trying to toss it away from him and things like, dude, if you aren't careful, you're going to die today.
Don't slide right into your boat.
Oh, I know. And, but anyway, so that's what I remember about that place almost more than anything else.
It's an odd spot. I kayak it quite a bit just because it's close to my house. I can load up and be there in about 15 minutes. So, and nice. I'll paddle up through there, and I'll just find a bank and sit until after dark, and then paddle back. You know, just a little solo trip. And I love it. I haven't seen anything there, and recently I haven't seen anything new. The structure was from probably 3 or 4 years ago, and it's starting to deteriorate quite a bit. I haven't seen anything new lately, but I mean, I don't know. There's enough people out there. Enough people have said certain things, so I don't know. But
yeah, they probably cruise through sometimes. You know,
who
knows?
Yeah. So let's see. I don't know if somebody says dart and tag one. I don't know how big of a dart you would need to.
Yeah, and the problem with that, people say, well, you know, you could tranquilize it. Yeah, but tranquilizing drugs are PCP. I mean, essentially, that's what PCP is. You know, the highly hallucinogenic drug. So you need a prescription to get that. And when you're getting a prescription, you have to fill out what you're going for. You might as well ask for a prescription of PCP so you can tag a leprechaun, because nobody's going to give you that. Yeah. And you also don't know what kind of drug interacts with their physiology. You don't know how much to give. You don't know how fast their metabolism is. It's a dead end, because and also tranquilizing darts are wildly inaccurate. So you have to get within 30, 40, 50 yards to even have a shot at maybe getting this thing. So if you give it too much drug, then you got a really high Bigfoot on your hand, and that's not cool. If you give it too little drug, you just piss it off. And that's not cool either. You know, if you get it could also run off and die or something. And it's just, I don't know. If you're going to do that sort of thing, I don't advocate for it, but a bullet is far simpler, you know?
Yep.
Don't drug the thing and leave it, you know?
Send it off hallucinating. So.
Oh, I know. Exactly. Yeah.
Let's see where we found tracks. How far do you think they travel, like a home range?
Well, their social structure is something that we're only beginning to glean, I guess, and that comes from the footprint tracks again, because we can't track one of these things right at this point, and we just don't know, except for the footprints. The footprints indicate to us what their social structures are. The earliest example of this was actually the original Bigfoot, the Jerry Crew Bigfoot animal that the whole species has been named after, essentially, the 1958 animal. And his footprint, I'm saying his because it was a larger track. It was a 16-inch track. And when you graph the footprints on a splatter graph, it's called, they kind of clump up into the 16-inch range and about 14-inch range. You know, the data is a little skewed because of the repeated individuals in the data set, but that's a different story. But anyway, his footprint tracks were found in one part of the year in Bluff Creek, between, say, August and maybe November or something like that. But we believe it's the same animals. Footprint tracks were found in High Palm, California, in April, 2 consecutive years, with a different female, I might add. The female in Bluff Creek was Patty, almost certainly. We have her tracks from 1958, 59, 62, 63, and 67. But in High Palm, 60 miles away as the crow flies, we have a different, smaller track associated with it, which is almost certainly a female. So, and by the way, that 60 miles is, it's a long ways. You have to cross a river, you have to cross 2 rivers, blah, blah, blah. But it's one ridge. One ridge goes from Bluff Creek down to High Palm, 60 miles away, more or less. So we think that male was basically doing booty calls back and forth between Bluff Creek and High Palm with different females. And if that's the case, I think that should be replicated in other parts of the country. And by the way, that's also very similar to the orangutan social structure, where females and their young have adjacent territories to other females and their young. And then the male kind of does booty calls to receptive females whenever they're ready. You know, we don't know if they go in heat or not, or if they're like humans and they're always reproducible or reproductive or whatever word you want to use. We don't know about that. But that at least gives us some data on which we can build a hypothesis instead of just speculating wildly about whatever. I try to be data driven. If the data doesn't support it, I throw out my hypothesis and start over again. It's what we all should be doing.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I'd travel 60 miles for a booty call, I guess. I mean,
I probably have. Yeah, exactly.
I've traveled farther. I know this, you know. So, I mean, yeah. I mean, let's be real. But I didn't walk 60 feet. I can tell you that. So, I don't know if I could. I don't know if I could do that for a booty call. So, let's see. Let's see who else we got. Oh, that's the people who do the habituation where they're feeding them and coexisting with them. I don't know about that. To me, I'm kind of against that personally. So,
yeah, I don't think you really can habituate a Sasquatch to the point where you can call it out of the woods and take food out of your hand or anything like that. And but I mean, I live in the woods. I've had Bigfoots on my property. I'm confident of it. But then again, I also chose the location of my property based on sighting reports. You know, so I already knew they were in the neighborhood. And when I moved in, I've heard them, what I consider to be unambiguous. I've heard them twice, probably. I've had some other things happen that I'm pretty sure it was them. If it wasn't them, I don't know what the hell it was. That they're the most likely culprit. Like some weird tapping on the outside of my house that imitated my patterns, for example. I've had things left on my property that or something got inside my barn. It's not really a barn; it's a big outbuilding, like big metal-sided outbuilding. Something came in, and like the first couple of weeks I was there, I moved in. It'll be 3 years in October that I've lived there, and within 2.5 weeks of me moving in, I had a big empty outbuilding, right? And there were a couple piles of rocks inside the outbuilding, and then one day I went in there, and all the rocks had been moved into a line in the middle of and like what is that about? And my wife thought I did it. You know, but like, and man, I live on a dead end road. I'm the third person to the end of the road. There's only 4 of us on the road. And I also live in Clackamas County, which is probably very similar to Oklahoma in some ways. If you're going on somebody else's property and other people's outbuildings, you are asking for it. You're asking for a shotgun up your ass, basically, what you're asking.
Yeah.
You know, like that just does not happen where we live because even the tweakers are too smart for that. Yeah. So anyway, that happened. And like about a month later, I had a wagon that I was dragging firewood around in for a while until I got my side-by-side, I left the wagon out by the fire pit and then by the fire stack, the firewood stack on the side of my outbuilding. The next morning, my doors of the outbuilding were open and the wagon was moved inside. There's nobody on my property. Like, how the hell did that happen? And I don't know, maybe that's Bigfoot, maybe it's not, I don't know. But I have heard their vocalizations, unambiguous, like sort of vocalizations. My wife, she's, it's kind of funny to say, but unfortunately she stopped smoking cigarettes because she would go out and she'd like smoke one cigarette a day. She was never really a heavy smoker, but she would go out on the porch and smoke a cigarette, and spend 20 minutes out on the porch at night smoking a cigarette. And she's heard whoops, whoop, whoop, like that kind of stuff. She's heard knocks out there, and she was not chased inside, but like something scared the hell out of her, and she ran inside because something thumped the ground so hard. And yeah, I mean, I've had indications they're around. They're not around every day. They're not even around every month. I haven't heard anything on the property since November at this point, so that's 10 months of nothing. Wow. That doesn't mean they're not there. I haven't picked up on it, but people do have them around. If you live in Bigfoot habitat, you probably have them around every once in a while too. Just the whole trick, I guess, is, for me at least, is how can I get them to stop? How can I get them to come visit and hang out and like learn to trust me over the years?
Exactly.
I probably can't, but I'll give it a try,
Yeah. Good luck with that. So
Yeah.
Alan Green says he has a picture that we need to see from Tennessee. Alan, you can send that to any of us. We would love to look at it. So
yeah, North American Bigfoot at Gmail is my Bigfoot address. Send it to me. I'll be happy to look at it. But careful, I will tell you what I think the truth is. That's the thing about asking me anything. And you guys found out, ask me and I will tell you what I really think. Just be prepared. It may not be exactly what you want. And God, if the picture, like if he would have said, this is the best picture there is, that would have been the third time today that I heard those words.
Yeah.
Now, mind you, I've not had that happen yet. It's not, none of you will give me the best picture I've seen, because I've seen some very good pictures, but I'd love to see whatever you got,
I tend to help folks out with pictures that may be too dark or something's kind of obscured looking. I'm a graphic artist. I use the Adobe Creative Suite, so have for 15 years. So I can usually shed some light, sometimes literally, on what's going on. And they're like, oh. Yeah,
I use CS3 myself, so I'm a little behind the times as far as the Adobe Creative Suite goes.
CS3?
Yeah, I know. Well, that's what I had, man. Well, I can't afford the monthly subscription at this point, But my employee, a guy named Connor Anderson, who's a hell of a Bigfooter, real sharp guy. He's a young gentleman that, he works at my shop and stuff, and he is a film guy, and he is excellent at film analysis. So I'm good at the pictures. But he's a filmmaker, so he understands After Effects and for stabilizing and stuff. And so he's been a great help to me as far as videos go. The footage stuff, I can squeeze a lot of information out just from being a nerd, for so many years. I've learned a couple tricks. So,
I'm horrible with pictures. People send me a picture of something and nothing in the picture looks like Bigfoot to me. Like they'll say, hey, it's right here. It's right here. And I don't see it. I am the worst with pictures. So somebody sends me something, I'm probably going to disappoint them because I'm not going to see what they're seeing. So I don't know if it's just me or what, but
it's not. I do that every single week, and I just feel terrible about it. I really do. But I think the truth, or at least my version of the truth, is what they come to me for, and I got to give it to them. It's like, well, no, that's pareidolia. That's clearly this, or that's clearly that. And
I think I do have the greatest pareidolia photo though there is, and I got it in Falk, Arkansas, at about 200 feet away across the. I can't remember that river there. That's by the lake that we went to, but I had saw a shadow that looked like something standing there, and I saw it with my own eyes. Me and another guy. I took a picture of it. And I zoomed in on it. And when you zoomed in on it, you could tell it's clearly just where some brush had been cut out. And we were just at the right angle where it looked like a head. It looked like an arm up. And, and we're looking at it and we're like, okay, we know it's just the vegetation. And so I go to the group and I say, you guys, you missed it. We just got a picture of Bigfoot the first day we're here. And I show everybody, and everybody's looking at it like, oh, wow, but it wasn't, it was just the leaves and the shadows and things like that. So I call it the greatest one ever. So
Bigfoot in the brain, right?
Yeah. And it's easy to do, when you get caught
it's like, I think it's a Bible verse, isn't it? What I seek and ye shall find, and I always add a little bit on there. Seek and ye shall find, even if it's not there.
And Shane, you may give Alan our email address there too. I know Cliff gave his, but
Oh yeah, Alan looks like he's asking again. For me, at least, it's North American Bigfoot at gmail.com. So there you go, Alan.
And I think Shane may have just froze on us. It looks like he looks awfully still. I don't know. So
it's like a Bigfoot getting spotted, you know?
Yeah.
Just freeze all of a sudden, you can't notice him anymore.
Let's see. Pay attention to seasons. Example: early to mid-spring, early mid-fall. Yeah, I mean, I would imagine seasons would definitely play into it. I mean, it does.
Well, yeah,
so
because they supply food resources. Yeah. So what is it about that particular season that they're going after is the question. I would go past that. Seasons absolutely do matter, but why is the question?
Yeah.
You know?
That's our thing too. And even with our Squatch Creek area, we were there about a month ago, I guess, and we took the kayaks and we were floating around there and we saw this, what they were calling some type of sage grass. And I'm not familiar with vegetation, but I come upon this area, and this is where the creek dumps into this large body of water where we've been getting all these casts. And I found this huge area that's probably 10, 12 foot in diameter where all this grass was pulled up and like something had eaten the root off of it. And then on the edge of it were these two sections that were probably, I don't know, maybe 4 foot wide, and they were side by side. And it looked like two large animals sat down in the water and pressed all this grass down. And they were just reaching out and pulling all this grass up and eating the roots off. And so we're still figuring that out ourselves, what that grass is.
Actually dug up a whole plant last week. Mr. B did. He's giving it to his guy. So
yeah. So it's just one more thing that we're, another thing we got to do. We got to constantly check everything. You know what I mean? Because is it just grass? Who knows? I mean, is it a food source? We don't know. But something was in that water. And when I say in the water, it's about 10 inches deep.
Something. Hey, Brian, I tried it.
Another thing I can suggest, when you look at when you find the species of the plant, we shouldn't only be looking at nutritional value. We should be looking at medicinal value as well. Exactly. Because all the other ape species, including humans, because we are apes at the end, that's our biological family. There's no other way around it. All ape species use plants as medicine, basically, in some form or another. It's been very well documented in the other non-human ape species, and obviously humans, going back as far as you want to go, we've been using herbs and things like that, which is like the root of most even synthetic medicines today. And I think a really good enlightening example of all this that has recently surfaced is with Shane Corson from the Olympic Project. And he and Todd Hale stumbled across what we think was a Sasquatch in the middle of making these nests. I got called into the scene. We got handprints and footprints and whatever else. But Shane identified the species of huckleberry that it was being used for the nest. But he went one step further. And it turns out that species of huckleberry has like natal benefits. In other words, birthing benefits, for pregnant mothers and things like that. Wow. Okay. Which might give us some sort of insight, maybe why they were using the nests. It's all speculative at this point. But it's an interesting place to start from. And unless we're out there looking for it, we won't find it.
All right. We had another gentleman just ask for email address to send a photo. So I don't know if Cliff, you want to repeat that one more time for him.
Yeah. It's North American Bigfoot at gmail.com. And really, if you type in the word Cliff and Bigfoot in Google, you're going to come across my website. And then there is a contact Cliff button right there too. Or you can send it to the museum. I check that one as well every day I can. So I'm easy to get a hold of. It's like hard to avoid, frankly. Don't do social media though. Don't contact me through Facebook. Right now, Facebook thinks I'm a Russian bot because they can't verify I live in the United States, let alone Oregon. Right? So they don't. I can't get anything on Facebook. If I can even access Facebook, it's through my wife's account. So if you see something posted on my Cliff Barackman page, it's from Melissa Barackman. It's actually me because I have to use my wife's page to get in there. I turned off my direct messages because I just. You know what? 3 email accounts is more than enough for me. I don't need people on Facebook contacting me too. Email. Don't do social media. Not for me. Okay.
Yeah. And Shane, I was asking you to give them our email address when you froze up a while ago, and so you went solid on us. And if you want to go ahead and do that now, that way they can send it to us too.
What's your email? You want to send it to SBA?
Yeah, sure.
SBA.reports@gmail.com.
There you go. Well, we have come to that moment.
Wow.
Oh, it is
Time
time.
flies.
Time flew. Yeah,
Cool.
we don't want to make you late for dinner. So.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, I appreciate the opportunity and the invitation to come back on, or not back on, but to come on and discuss these things with you because,
Sure.
well, first of all, I really did feel like I needed to give Shane an apology because I was short with him that day, and I sincerely apologize about that. A shitty day where I almost lose my business is barely an excuse for being anything less than appropriate with someone. I apologize about that.
Yeah, you're good.
But other than that, I mean, I think it's also important to discuss differences of opinion, when, especially in Bigfoot land, because man, what is it about the internet and Bigfooters that turn us all into assholes?
Exactly.
And yeah, you can have a different opinion about something and still be cordial and friendly and friends, frankly.
Mhm.
And I think that more of these kinds of discussions need to be out there in the open. I mean, there are literally people out there advocating violence against me and a few other people because I disagreed with something that had nothing to do with them even.
Wow.
Yeah, and trust me, man, I'm easy to find. I'm in my museum. You know, you can come find me and kick my ass if you really want to. I just prefer you not want to do that.
Yeah.
But there's people out there doing that, and that is a mental illness, in my opinion. And this whole or the whole political divide that we see nowadays, the whole cultural divide that we see nowadays, all of these things are aligning to separate us as a people, and there's really no reason for it because it's okay that not everybody agrees with you. It's okay because there's only one truth out there, and none of us know it. And whatever that truth is, it can withstand the scrutiny. And so I prefer to hang out with people who don't agree with me because frankly, I get a little bored of the way I think.
Yeah.
I
mean, and that's similar to our
Totally.
group, our Southern Bigfoot Alliance is we're at 3,400 members now. And there's about 6 or 7 of us as a core group that go out repeatedly, and we all disagree. We all have different opinions, and we don't agree with each other all the time. And I love that. Like
I don't agree. I don't agree with you right now, Brian.
Exactly. See, and I don't agree with your headphones either, Shane. But I think that keeps things interesting, and it also keeps us honest. You know what I mean? Like we can hold each other to a certain level and call each other out on it without BSing each other and coming up with something. So that's what I love about our group. That's what I love about these guys. And I can't wait till you're in Southeast Texas because I've never been to that conference, but now I have to go.
Oh yeah,
I'm going to load up every cast I have. I'm going to bring the hair sample. I'll bring the audio, and I'm going to bug you to death about it. So
please, yes, that's in Jefferson. There's actually a Southeast Texas Bigfoot conference that I was scheduled for, but they got canceled this year. But this one's in Jefferson. It's I think Craig calls it the original Texas Bigfoot conference or something like that.
Craig.
Well, yeah, or something like that. Yeah, so it's in Jefferson. It's around the weekend of the 16th, whenever that is, of October. I think it's the 16th. It could be 18th. I don't know.
Yeah, it's in October for sure.
Yeah, and then like the usual cast of Star Wars Cantina-like characters will be there. Me and Lyle's going to be Lyle Blackburn, and
Lyle will be on here Monday.
Lyle
will be on our show Monday.
Yeah, Lyle's great, man. We love Lyle.
Yeah, Gerhardt's going to be there. A few other people as well. It should be a Texas event is always so good. I like Texans is kind of what it comes down to. I like everybody really, but that's kind of a love-hate relationship thinking about it with everybody. I kind of love them, but leave me alone because I'm an introvert and I want to go sit in the woods quietly. But I do love the Texas conference because everybody there is just so kind. They know how to barbecue the crap out of everything. And and it's the only place I've ever been that if I mention firearms, they all burst out and applaud.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. We like our guns.
Yes, you do.
And that's Oklahoma too. I mean, we're real.
Yeah, Oklahoma not much.
Oh yeah, but you know what I really like about it is that remember the divide I was just talking about. Yeah, because at the end of the day, I'm kind of this West Coast hippie guy. Like everybody just do whatever the hell you want. Don't make everything illegal and whatever. It's whatever. It's like I don't represent the sort of red conservative value that is so predominant throughout the South. I just not that I'm not out there, like protesting in Portland right now or anything, but I'm left leaning, shall we say. But mind you, every bird has a left wing and a right wing, but the brain's in the middle, but when even though I'm not the left wing radical that a lot of people think I am, because I'm really not, I'm really a centrist at best. When I go to Texas, I swear to God, people were saying this to me. So I understand you're kind of liberal out here, Cliff, but you seem like a good guy. I said, yeah, I am a good guy. I'm not bad. I mean, I have my faults. I make my mistakes, but and you like me anyway. And I think that's part of the importance of traveling around the country like I do, you know, because I'm a West Coaster at heart. I really am, always will be. And when I go to places, oh, you know, I know you're from the West Coast, but you seem like you're a good guy. Yeah. I'll be
shocking.
darned.
Yeah, shocking, right?
Yeah, we got to get back to that whole United States of America thing, right? Yeah, let's be together. Everybody's cool. Because what I find is that everybody wants the same thing. Leave me alone. Let me have an opportunity to make enough money to feed my family, and I'll do the same to you.
Yeah,
you know,
no doubt. So, well, I've enjoyed this. I'm glad you came on. I mean, because we're a nobody in this field right now. You know, we're just a couple of guys goofing off, having drinks on our show. We're trying to do things different. You know, we're not doing a traditional show, and you know, for us anyways, we just really want to have fun. I know ours got real serious there for a little bit because we needed to discuss a few things, but I'm just very thankful that you came on, and I appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
I'm always happy to do stuff like this. You know, there are no little guys or big guys. It's just guys, man. I happen to be more prominent. I own a museum. I was on that TV show for 10 years or 9 years, whatever it was. I get it. More people know about me, but so what? I'm just folk, man. I'm just like everybody else. I'm still learning about these things. I don't know what the hell's up with them. So
we'll have to make it up to the museum too. I'd like to check it out.
Well, if you do make it out to the West Coast, give me a holler, you know, and I'll meet you down here and I'll give you the royal treatment and stuff, you know.
Okay. All right, cool deal. We appreciate it.
Sounds good.
All right, guys. All right, you guys.
Okay.
If you ever need me for anything at all, you know how to reach me. Just go ahead and reach out, and I will always be happy to give my 2 cents, even if it's only worth 1. All right.
All right. Sounds good. All right. We will see you in October.
All right. Fantastic. Looking forward,
buddy.
All right.
Everybody out there, thanks a lot for tuning in. Keep supporting these guys, man. They're doing good work.
Hey, thanks.
You guys
appreciate it. Thanks,
Bye-bye.
buddy. All right, man. We're still live, so I like Cliff.
Yeah. We
Yeah.
got to talk to him on a different level.
Yeah.
Here.
And I went in this probably a little bitter. You know,
when I first got on, I was like this.
Yeah. I mean, I was telling people this thing may only last about 10 minutes, you know, because he's going to say the wrong thing, and we're both very passionate about our research and about our evidence, and we're going to take it personal, and it's going to get ugly and south real quick.
Yeah.
And he's going to hang up because he
got all my cast back here behind me.
Exactly. Like we're armed to the, to the gift. And I'm thinking this guy's gonna be like, well, who are these two jackwagons and who do they think they are? And he's just going to hit the remove button. Right. Yeah. And so I was thinking this is going to be short, but I mean, here we are, you know, it's almost 2 hours later and the guy was very, very gracious to be here. So.
Man, I guess he's going to buy me a beer in October.
He owes you a beer. It'll be a Texas beer. So. Tim says it changed his opinion on him too. He thought he was a good guy. Jake Smith says, yeah, he's a great guy. Yeah, I mean, I definitely have changed my opinion of him. You know, not that I thought he was a bad guy, because even when he was on the show, he was always my favorite guy because he seemed really, really pure and passionate about it. Mm-hmm. I just took it as like, man, he doesn't like our evidence because our evidence is better than his. You know, that's the way I took it. And so that's on me, and I'm going to admit that, right? I'm not going to, I'm not going to act a different way. Like,
I'm with you, dude. I was there too.
I was bitter, you know, like I was ready to go to Oregon and fight this guy at his museum.
But it's like man, we're pushing our ass over here. I didn't pull tips off my nuts.
Exactly.
To get these tracks. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, we spend so much money, you know, doing our research and things like that, and time away from our families and stuff like that. And I mean, it's not easy, you know. So whenever you have someone say, "Oh yeah, I was looking at a picture of your track and they're all fake," that's like, you know, I mean, you just kick me in the balls at that point.
Oh,
right?
I know.
Yeah, and I want to fight you right then and there, you know.
Like, what'd you say about my mom?
Exactly. That's like I said earlier. You know, it's like saying my kids are ugly. You know what I mean? Like the gloves are off. It's time to go. You know. Yeah. And so I mean, but I get his point. You know what I mean? He is looking at a photo. I get it, and I'm looking at his photos.
Well, and he showed us the phone with the photo on it. You know,
Yeah.
we were talking to him. That is really not the best representation. To
Yeah,
me.
he actually got a picture of the worst cast. You know what I mean? So I get it. I'm gonna give it a pass, and I'm gonna go at it pleasant time when we see him. You know, and Jefferson, and let him look at the cast, because I think there's just way more detail.
Oh, we're
there.
gonna have fun with this because it'll actually be in front of everybody's faces. You know,
Yeah, yeah,
it'll actually
and
be tangible.
everyone will be there. You know what I mean? So now I kind of wish we had a booth at that conference and we could just set them up inside, right?
Yeah. What's up with that, Craig Woolheater?
Yeah, Craig, we should get a free booth.
Yeah.
Because we have some controversial cast, apparently. So
I'll throw a logo your way somewhere, somehow.
there you go. Barter.
Ooh, man, nothing like good business.
Yeah. That's the way it goes, right?
Hey,
Did you drink all your beer?
I did.
Yeah.
It was good.
Yeah,
Tastes like summer.
I'm out too. So yeah, this is the longest show, 2 hours.
Awesome.
So I guess we can go ahead and wrap it up. So
yeah. Wow, that was a journey.
Yeah, I'm tired.
Cool.
My ears hurt. So
I don't know. I feel really relaxed. Hey, Joe Parker said, "Where are the stickers to buy?" Okay, if you want an SBA sticker, I put it on that post. You have to PayPal the email address I sent on there. I'll send it to you personally if you need me to. I'll just I'll PM you, Joe. It'd probably be a lot easier.
yeah, all right. I'm glad Doug got to watch. So he had some good questions in there. Why not on the booth? I'm sure you'd be welcome. The more, the merrier. Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
We had a booth at Honubby a couple years ago. It was a lot of fun. We brought some merchandise, so some shirts and some hoodies and some magnets and some artwork and things like that.
Some tracks.
We brought two, didn't we? 2 or 3? Okay. And that was a lot of fun because we got to meet a lot of people. We got to hear,
oh man, talking to the
eyewitness
people.
accounts. Yeah. So I don't know. Maybe we should try to get a booth at Jackson or Jefferson.
We had one. Who runs the Falk Festival? Is that Craig Woolheater too?
Yeah, that's Craig. Because
he was going to give us a booth out there to do casting demos, like bring our tracks in. But that kind of fell through with COVID and everything. Well, maybe Craig,
hint, Craig. Which are we still doing the casting demo in Arkansas, right? In Mena next month?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Daniel says good night, fellas. Good night, Daniel.
Peace, Daniel.
Yeah, he's on the east side there.
Yeah, Daniel's worker. He's a worker.
Leatherman may be there. Share with you. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Well,
very cool. All right, man. Well,
you got anything else?
Wow. I don't.
Oh, Timbo says if he's not working, he'll go with us. Okay.
Oh man.
Hey, let's make never mind. Let's make Tim drive. He got that fancy new truck.
Ooh. I'm gonna stretch out in that sucker.
Yeah. Oh, Joe was talking about Dusty when he said Leatherman.
Wait, is Dusty gonna be out there?
I don't think he's going to Jefferson. I don't think he's going to Mena either.
Well, shame on him.
Yeah, Pat, thanks a lot. We're still learning.
Yeah, Pat's awesome, man. Like, if you guys are trying to get into this, Pat's a good guy to chat with.
Pat could teach a class on StreamYard.
Yes,
and he tried to help me at the last minute on some stuff, and I wish I would have talked to Pat like 2 days ago and got that set up, because that way I wouldn't have to hold my phone up to the deal and try to show you what I'm looking at. But we'll get all those bugs worked out. So Pat's been super generous with his time and all that work. So
StreamYard 101.
Yeah, exactly.
Your teacher, Mr. Turner.
Principal Turner, right?
Don't bring him an apple to class. He'll just throw it out the window. That's what he does. He throws stuff. Okay. Wow.
A lot of fun. Share screen. Yeah, definitely share screen. So we'll practice some more and get that. We originally we didn't want any type of big guest for a while, right? Remember we were
Yeah, we're just wanting to just kind of shoot the stuff.
yeah, we were just
Have an,
just
have an L and just talk. Just talk
yeah,
crap.
and just sudden you just bang we mile on. So I mean, who's after that, right? So
Well, next this Monday coming up is Lyle Blackburn. That'll be a good one.
it's gonna be a great one.
Yeah, the dude's he's chill. So
Thanks, Mike.
yeah, appreciate it, Mike.
Yeah. Lyle's a cool dude, man. And I'm still reading his book.
Yeah, me
I don't
too.
think I'm not gonna have it finished by the show.
I'm not gonna finish it either, but what I love, and I kind of wanted to save this for his show, but I just want to mention it real quick. Like when he writes, like especially in this book, he has it set up in like little sections within each chapter. So if you want to just read a section of an area and what happened to the so and so, you can and be done with it in like 2 or 3 pages.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I like about it.
It's perfect for a guy like me that doesn't want to get wrapped up in a long, drawn out.
Yeah. Yes.
It's great short stories, and since I got the attention span of a squirrel, it's perfect for me. I mean, I'm a big reader. I was when I was young, and as I got older, I just hate it, and I hate it. So for me to even order Lyle's book, I can't remember the last time I bought a book. Except, matter of fact, the last book I bought was Lyle's book, and I bought it for my daughter. So I ordered this book, and I sat down on the back porch and started reading this thing, and I was just like, man, I'm enjoying this.
Mhm.
So that's cool to me,
Yeah.
For him to get a guy who's a non-reader.
I can't wait to talk to him, man, because
Yeah.
I have it's going to be good.
Oh yeah.
The research he does to write these books it's pretty outstanding, and I'm kind of envious of
Yeah.
the journey.
He's a good dude. So let's see.
Mike said if we're ever in Long Island to hit him up and he'll take us around.
Heck
Give
yeah.
us the mic. Give us the
Long
mic.
Island. Man, let's go.
I
Mike,
got
have a
family
good night.
so that's not too far fetched.
Yeah. Joe, thanks. We appreciate those kind words.
Yeah. Joe, I'll get with you. It may not be tonight, but it will be early in the morning. I'll send to what you need to do with to get the sticker or whatever. It's the end of the day, and my brain's kind of fried. I was just all just last pistons are just going away. Just going away.
I hear you, man. Well, that was fun though. So
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll let you guys get back to whatever you're doing. And
yeah,
us too, right?
yeah, definitely.
See you Monday.
So, yeah. You want to go ahead? You want to go ahead and end it for us?
Yeah, sure.
I'll let you have the honor.
Thanks, man. Bye.